AM.
With Gillette, proud supporters of Movember. Gentlemen, let's move.
Oh, at the OTB Stadium.
I have to say, when you take all in context, Joe, like, I was looking down at the reaction of, the players, Stephen Kenny, and thinking back to where we all were a year ago.
Even in March.
Even in March, we were not in a good place.
No.
We were not in a good place, and you felt like you constantly needed to try and defend what we were trying to achieve. You were constantly repeating yourself to people, saying you need to give it an opportunity, we need to change the whole psychology. And sometimes it can be difficult from the outside looking in. Is it ever going to change? But if anything, tonight was evidence that it's definitely changed. It has definitely changed. We have gone head to head, toe to toe with one of the best teams in the world. I have to say, they didn't play tonight like they were one of the best teams in the world, but Ireland conducted themselves in a manner where they were able to come away with a result here tonight, and probably even could have gone and won it. But it's a great performance from Ireland, and I think a lot of people are, I think the FAI will look at this now, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if Stephen's extension comes even quicker now.
That is Stewie Byrne talking to Joe at the Aviva Stadium last night after the Republic of Ireland's heroic 0-0 draw with Portugal. Owen Sheahan, good morning to you.
Good morning, Adrian.
If you're out there and you were at the game last night, lash in your comments to us, please. I'd love to know what you think, and indeed if you were looking at the game last night, we've had one comment on in. I think it's going to set the tone for the day already. Paul McGee, good morning to you, Paul. Good footballing display with no real cutting edge up front last night, and good morning, says Paul. I think that pretty much sums it up. But anyway, you were down there last night. Before we get into the intricacies and the tactical debate, good buzz, I presume.
Yeah, like, why wouldn't it be, really? First time with a full house for Stephen Kenny, and there was definitely a buzz on that level. I did feel that, and I'm sure a lot of people who were there last night felt that, like, it wasn't on, say, the level of anticipation of say, the Denmark playoff a couple of years ago, or maybe even the last full house for that Denmark game, because there's a difference between something being on the line for the manager and something being on the line for the team and actually qualifying for a tournament. And when you take that out of it, it does dampen the atmosphere a little bit. I that's just my opinion. Like, it just wasn't on that pure pitch of, wow, this is such a massive
it's
game.
a bit of a fake. The players obviously have to get themselves up, but
exactly.
Even look at the lineups last night, like just before the game, it is a bit of a fake getting yourself up for the game. Now, there's 50,000 people back in the stadium, and I presume that there's no sort of no job required in that front. Like,
no, it's still a big. It felt big, but it didn't feel on the level of, like, say, a playoff or whatever. But that's very much clutching at straws if you're looking for ways of dimming what the atmosphere was last night. It was great to see this team in front of a full house, and there is no question that the mood music around this team, publicly anyway, is that they're going in the right direction and everybody is behind them.
It was a damp squib on. That was the main takeaway from Liam Brady last night.
Well, so the damp squib thing, I presume, I haven't properly watched back the TV coverage last night, but is that based on the team that Portugal named? Is it based on the attitude that Portugal brought? Is it based on the fact that Ireland couldn't qualify for the World Cup?
Yeah, I think everything was in play last night, and ultimately when he further explained his thoughts after the game, it was also tied into it was the Stephen Kenny contract situation is upcoming very shortly. Possibility even in the next sort of week that the FAI might have some sort of indication as to what they're going to do. You assume that they sign him up, but Liam Brady was very much at the camp that last night was not enough evidence to suggest that Stephen Kenny should be given a contract that, like, I don't know, I have to say that my view would be that and he's not alone, there are people out there who are very much of a similar mind that it's not enough evidence yet to give Stephen Kenny a new deal. But if you can't enjoy, I think there were parallels last night with the Italy game at the Euros in France where we beat everybody. The people who don't want you to enjoy that game will tell you that was Italy B. Like, let us eat cake. The thing is, like, it's not we've been in a bad place for a long time with Irish football. There was so much positivity about that game last night. Of course the result didn't go our way. Like, when you step back and look at the two games against Portugal, we were within a whisker of taking 6 points against Portugal. Like, we could have done.
I would say 4.
Maybe should have done. I know, but look, I know your man scores a couple of games. Look at eating bread soon forgotten, etc. And we got the goal last night. You can debate. I personally think it was a free out, but plenty of people feel the opposite to that. But all I'm saying is, this is the sort of debate we're having now about Irish football compared to what we were having up to about a year ago.
Yeah, like, for me, the manager should be giving you something extra that the players can't give you. So is the manager able to take a group of players and take them above their level to whatever degree, even if it's just an inch above their level, then that's good. And if you're looking at last night in microcosm, like I think it's very hard to look at last night and say that the manager isn't doing a good job. Like, you come up against a team that is one of the best teams in the world, and you have basically the same amount of possession as them, basically the same amount of passes as them. You have the exact same number of shots as them. And you can't actually throw into the mix then on top of that, oh, well, Portugal weren't up for it, this wasn't a great Portugal team. Like, it's not an exact metric, but just like going through transfer fees that have been paid on this Portugal team, it has totted up to £611 million. The Ireland total is £61 million. To put it into one little nugget here, the Ireland team have accumulated fewer pounds in transfer fees than Nelson Semedo alone. This is the chasm between these two teams, regardless of whether or not Cancelo or Jota was playing last night. It genuinely does not matter, because what you're saying is, can a team who are 10 times cheaper than their opposition play to a level where they can actually hold a candle to their opposition? And the evidence, the statistics, the facts on last night is that yes, they absolutely could. And I think that the manager does take credit for that. And I think it would be a weird decision to move away from this path right now, because I think the path that they're on, I'm not saying it's going to last forever, but the path that they're on right now is one of improvement and one of going in the right direction.
Yeah, the people who were against the Stephen Kenny thing up to this point have been saying, listen, we need to see improvement. Now that the improvement is in your face and it's unavoidable, they want to see more improvement, and that circus will never end. Give the man a new contract and let's get on with it. As a man who went to see PSG recently and was there, I've come for Ander Herrera, if I remember the tweet roughly, sort of thereabouts. Were you looking much at Bruno Fernandes and Ronaldo last night as to what they were doing in and around the ball? Because it's hard to get a full steer in it, like, looking at it. Well, Fernandes had a bit of a mare, but certainly looking at it on the TV, neither seemed to. I know Ronaldo had a whole pile of chances, and that does, as we've seen over the last few months, tend to paper over the cracks a bit. But what was your view in the ground looking at them?
They were fine. Like, Bruno is in a pretty sticky patch at the moment, form-wise. Ronaldo, it's just that one chance, isn't it? But the header where it glances the outside of the post, and then the one where he cuts in and shoots just wide. I'm not sure how close that one actually was, but the header was certainly one where it's like, okay, he's just going to pop up out of nowhere and do something. Certainly when he was kind of like shooting into our goal in the second half, you're like, okay, we're going to see Ronaldo score here, aren't we? And it didn't, like, that was the thing from last night. It didn't necessarily feel as if there was a back to the wall job to be done. Now, in fairness, this is where maybe the argument does have some credence, the sort of damp squib element of it. If Portugal needed 3 points, and they absolutely had to get 3 points last night, that might have been different. Whereas when we were playing them in Faro, it did feel that they were desperately looking for that 3 points, and it was very much back to the wall. But I think that would have come about anyway had Ireland gone 1-0 up last night. I think naturally Portugal would have gone desperately searching for an equaliser. So I think that the circumstances are a little bit different. But it didn't really feel at any point throughout the 0-0 scenario that Ireland were like really under a massive deal of pressure. And I think, to be honest with you, if you ask me if it's like keeping an eye on Bruno and Ronaldo, not too much, to be honest, because you're watching Ireland closer than that. And I think that texter who's already been in touch, I think he hit the nail on the head. That is the one thing you do see with Ireland at the moment, is that lack of incision in the final third. Like, the goal scorer has obviously been held up as the big problem over the last little while, but I think bigger than that at the moment is just that killer pass that can unlock a defence. That is missing at the moment from Ireland.
Yeah, and you were having a lot of pints as well, so you weren't really like the football.
I didn't even watch the game.
Yeah, one of the other points that Liam Brady made in the TV last night was that Ireland only came to life. It was a damn squib up until the Pepe sending off. But like, how many times with an Irish team have we sat here saying that a player got sent off and it made no difference? It still looked like 11v11. Ireland were all over them, like really sort of pounding for that goal. And the goal that they ultimately got and was disallowed, but like it was I think he was using that as a stick to beat Ireland with. I think actually wasn't that fantastic. The player got sent off and we were still able to hammer them after that in a way that you haven't always seen from an Irish team. So
I wonder as well, but I haven't properly caught up on the coverage from last night, but Liam Brady, the one thing I did catch was that he's saying that Ireland should wait to give Stephen Kenny a new contract. And I wonder, like, Is there the kind of semblance of a point in that? Like, that if you're in charge of the FAI right now and you're not sure, like, are you waiting? Are you like realistically weighing up where Stephen Kenny's going to go and saying we actually should wait until the summer? Like, I don't agree with him. I think that he should get a new contract right now. But I wonder, like, is what he says actually indicative of how people in power actually think in the Football Association?
I think that the FAI are sure. Actually, that was the thing that I was thinking last night when I was listening to him. All the indications are that the FAI are sure. All the indications are the vast majority of the country are sure. 50,000 people turned out to watch the game last night. They were sure as shit that this guy needs a new contract. The thing that I would say, the patience bit, I get. So let's wait a few games. It looks like this guy's the right guy. That's not what Liam Brady is saying. He's the tone of his entire commentary is that he isn't convinced that Stephen Kenny is the right guy, and he maybe is pulling a veil over it by saying give him a bit of time. For me, that's just it's just a Trojan horse for the fact that he doesn't really want Stephen Kenny there as manager. So I mean, that was my view on it, and I was interested and I get your take on it now, but like the game been sold out really quickly, and then obviously more tickets came on sale last night on. I wondered at the time how much of that was tied into Ronaldo and some of the superstars that were there for on the Portugal side, and how much of it was tied into the Irish bit. But it did seem with the evidence last night, a lot of it was tied into the Irish bit.
Well, it's impossible to get a proper gauge on it. Like there was 1 or 2 Manchester United jerseys there last night.
You're joking me. Irish fans.
But like, I mean, very young people in their Manchester United jerseys. So
like what, 21?
No. As in like. You like, I mean, somebody your age has put a United jersey on their kid, basically. That's like so that did exist. It's impossible to answer that question.
But like,
who were people there to watch? I would have. It can be both. I think that if it were Serbia, for example, last night, would there have been a similar turnout? I suspect there might have been, and I suspect there would have been. But like, both of those things can be true, that they possibly could have got to 60, 70 potentially last night, were the capacity that big for Ronaldo coming to town. And it's okay for people to want to show up and watch Cristiano Ronaldo while at the same time wanting to show up and actually cheer Ireland on. Like, I think there's definitely been a bit of a rush to criticise people who were excited about seeing Cristiano Ronaldo last night. Personally, I wouldn't be one of those people, and somebody was on Twitter last night to me saying it's embarrassing the booing that's going after Ronaldo, and I'm like, you know what, if you're going to boo a footballer, I'm pretty okay with Ronaldo being the guy who gets it, to be quite honest with you.
I have to say I'm all aboard the booing of Ronaldo, but I did, and you were there, so speak on behalf please of the 50,000 people who were at the ground last night. Why were they booing him?
Oh, well, that's a complicated question, isn't it? I mean, or is it actually a very simple answer? Is it because that the character of Ronaldo has been really called into question over the last couple of years?
Do you think it's to do with that?
Yeah, potentially.
The Catherine Mayorga allegations?
Yeah, but or is it just because he's their best player, you think?
I think maybe the couple of goals the last day, a lot of Liverpool fans... Like, it didn't feel... What did it feel like in the ground?
If I were to boo Cristiano, I didn't boo anybody. If I were to boo Cristiano, if I popped up on TV...
Some of my friends,
and I was like,
my best friends...
If I was throwing a pint at the pitch towards Cristiano Ronaldo, it would be nothing to do with the footballer. Put it that way. So I wonder. I'm sure that there are... he pops up on the big screen immediately as soon as the teams come out. He is the first person that the cameramen go towards, obviously, and straight away there's kind of like a mood shift when he pops up. It's like, wow, okay, he's here, sort of thing. So what's your initial reaction?
Is it a pantomime villain?
Like that could be it, but maybe that's the reality. I don't know, to be honest.
Do we not learn anything from the last day when Seamus Coleman gives him a bit of this, and suddenly he's like, right, screw you, boom, boom, game over. I would have thought, like, of all the things that not to be doing, don't be riling the man.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like,
if they were booing him for that reason, I'm all aboard.
One question, like the Shane Duffy photo of him with his hand, was that actually from the moment that was like a joke of a free? Do you remember, like, about 20-25 minutes in, where they both go up for a header and Shane Duffy heads it away, and then it's all of a sudden free?
That was it.
All right, because the stadium went absolutely poisonous at that moment. Like, I think I tweeted being like, the referee's a fanboy and all that. When actually Shane Duffy had his arm around his neck.
But it did feel like one of those photographs that the still didn't actually paint the picture of what was going on. But, and there was look at the referee's performance last night again. You don't want to be we're supposed to be all inclusive and not jibing too much at the referee, but you at the same time you have to call a poor performance when you see it. There's plenty of people have been in touch with us this morning. Not too much Kenny can do. Morning to you, Peter, on YouTube. Not too much Kenny can do about the attacking play with the players we have. He's got them really well set up in terms of defensive structure and playing out from the back, but attacking needs quality. Defence was great. Coleman outstanding, says Chris. Richard Redballs, good morning to you. The team has to be hard to beat first and foremost. The goals will come later. And somebody else wondering why the studio didn't talk about Giles. Just mentioned that he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. No tribute for a man who gave him 30 years superb analysis. I think that was fine. I think he was out on the pitch to be inducted, and Derry gave him a tip of the cap. I think that's the way it should work. And Michael says, for whatever reason, Stephen Kenny's loved by the hipsters. Ireland were okay and Portugal weren't great. And I do think that, like, sometimes you leave a game and you're like, was it that, we were really good and we sort of nullified them a bit, and you can never really be that sure. I did feel that last night Portugal's poor performance was definitely tied in to Ireland's all-up-in-your-face approach.
Like, I think that if Ireland won last night, the analysis might have been Ireland wanted it more. And I think over the last couple of years, we've truly got to the point where we've deconstructed that, where like that actually just doesn't make any sense in professional sport, that wanting it more just doesn't happen. Like, I mean, Ireland came up against 11 professionals last night and more professionals off the bench. That just wasn't a thing. And like, do we really think that Portugal came to Dublin not wanting to win or not really in the mood for it last night? I don't buy that, no. to be honest. Like, I accept that maybe the incentive wasn't there for them to go out and hammer Ireland as such, and that in the back of their mind there's always a sense that a draw would have been an okay result given what they need to do against Serbia at the weekend. But I don't know. I think the quality that they bring to the pitch, and again we have to bear in mind that Ireland also were out of the World Cup running last night, and that was reflected in the atmosphere a little bit. Still a good atmosphere, but not a 10 out of 10 atmosphere, because there was essentially nothing on the line with regards to competition last night for Ireland. So they were playing under those circumstances. Portugal were in the hunt for the World Cup last night. Ireland were not. So I don't think I really buy that argument that they showed up and were disinterested in last night, because they have something to play for and Ireland don't.
Yeah, 100%. Somebody with a bit of a different take on our point about the booing was David Salter here, who says they weren't booing in my section, it was Sue.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I did hear that as well.
Right.
But it was obviously
that's a shame.
The celebration. No, I think there was both, to be honest. Obviously it was, that's a tribute to Ronaldo, but it wasn't just that, definitely not.
Yeah,
definitely boozing there as well.
Stephen Fraser, how dour was Liam Brady last night? You're right, Adrian. Portugal's team worth millions. That was Owen's point, and our players not even getting their game. He says there. And Luxembourg will be the real test, says Terry McCarthy. Good morning to you, Terry. We're definitely going to be turning our attention to the Luxembourg game, because I think that, I think no matter what side of the argument you're right in, I do feel that the Luxembourg game, given everything that's gone on with them before, we were probably saying the same before the game last night, but it does feel as if that's probably the biggest thing now for Stephen Kenny, regardless. He probably knows himself, Owen, that I think it was Damien Delaney maybe over in Virgin last night that said, like, barring any kind of a absolute cock-up against Luxembourg, Stephen Kenny's going to get a new contract.
Yeah.
Feels like a fair comment.
Yeah, no, I think so. It just, you just got to decide whether or not the team is going in the right direction, and whether or not the manager is getting the most out of these players and a little bit more, and I think he's done that over the last little while. Like, I do think it's also a fair comment to suggest that they've beaten no one yet, and all that. Like, the last round of fixtures were encouraging, but it is also possible to accept that they were encouraging in the sense that you would like to see future results against better teams than Azerbaijan and Qatar. But the thing is that the uptick in this team has come at the same time, and a couple of forgiving fixtures have come up. And if they get a win at the weekend, I think that maybe dilutes that argument just a little bit. So, like, I absolutely, like, I don't think either of us are sitting here this morning saying that the jury has returned their verdict at all. Like, I definitely think there's a lot of work to do. But the question is, are you backing the progress made already and backing this manager until the end of the next Euros campaign? And I think you have to make a call on that now. Yeah. Because I think it'll be a strange thing to do to make your mind up maybe next summer when it's a little bit too late. You've only got a short amount of time after those First Nations League games to get a new manager in for the start of the Euros campaign. And we also need to bear in mind that the Nations League may actually be important. So I think that the decision needs to be made at the end of this weekend and after the Luxembourg game, and back Stephen Kenny or get rid of him. I think that has to be the decision that's made. And I think that it's also fair to say that let's wait to see Ireland actually beat a better nation than Azerbaijan or Qatar. But the early signs not the early signs, but the current signs are that they will be capable of doing that.
100%. If you're not backing him, why are you not backing him is the thing, because there's plenty of evidence all around the ground. Even the begrudgers accept that there's plenty of evidence that things are going well. I think the final third is a conversation that we're going to come back to a lot over the course of the morning, and it's certainly a big element of the comments that are coming into us this morning, and thanks a million for all the comments in so far. There's one here that really hits the nail on the head for me from Eoin on YouTube, saying the players and match-going fans want Kenny to stay. What everyone else thinks is irrelevant. Every Irish manager should get a Euros, as we should qualify for that. Things are improving, simple as. And I think that sums up what that FAI board meeting is going to spend hours debating over and back on. I think you've put it more succinctly than anybody else I've read. So that's a tone of what's coming into us this morning. If you were at the game last night, do drop us a line over the course of the morning. Let us know what your experience of the game was last night, or if you were watching it, any of the commentary around it, any thoughts at all on the football this morning. We've plenty coming up on that. We've a little bit of the reaction from in the stands last night with live commentary of the game with Nathan and Stewie Byrne at the Aviva last night alongside Joe. So we will bring you some of the flavour of the reaction from there very shortly. Vinny Perth, the Dundalk manager and a man who knows a lot about Stephen Kenny, is going to be coming your way just after 8 o'clock this morning to give us his take on exactly what he saw on the pitch last night. We'll let you know what's happening across the back pages of the newspapers this morning at about 8:30. A big weekend of rugby. Ireland against the All Blacks tomorrow afternoon at the Aviva Stadium, and it's also been a big weekend of rugby for the Irish women's team, off the pitch mainly, and we will get Alan's thoughts on all of that a little bit later on as well. And of course, all with the backdrop, and almost at this point, of a test match tonight for them. Also, I mean, you've already seen that we're all looking like clowns here. Some of us got the jump on November by starting our tashes in October, and then some of us sort of waited a few days before we even got going. And the evidence of that is all around us. But Joe is going to jump at the line a little bit later on, producer Joe, this morning, to let us know exactly what he makes of our efforts in the moustache variety. Crappy quiz, 9:10 this morning. We will be talking WSL with Emma Carroll at 9:25, and then a bit more Stewie Byrne from the game last night. Crappy quiz on last week. It was a live version. Do you know, when the dust settled on last week's quiz, the main thought I had was just a huge dollop of sympathy for you, because peace reigned. It was the calmest, most zen, relaxed. There's almost a bit of mindfulness going on.
It's a bit of an oxymoron, isn't it? Crappy quiz, that was
Will, Phil and Ronan. And there was no rancour, there was no giving out, no argy-bargy. The quizmaster nailed everything.
And so why do you think that is? Like, having moved from contestant to quizmaster, do you think that you might have possibly been to blame for all the really annoying things that happened?
100%.
The good news for people who like Zen quizzes is that Nathan is back today.
Ah, well, that is good news. I have to say, Eoin, I have very rarely hosted the quiz. God, it's a white knuckle ride, isn't it?
It really is. You just got to accept that your professionalism will never ever be questioned again, because it's just completely eroded after the end of a quiz.
I won't question your professionalism today, but I'll forget about that then next week, and we'll be back to business as usual, I presume. It's 7:53. It's Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM with Gillette, proud sponsors of Movember. Gentlemen, let's mow. Now, let's get you some reaction from the game last night. We're going to start off here with Bossman Steo. Here he is, speaking after last night's game. General summation and a big evaluation of John Egan here as well. Take a look.
Well, I think we're improving as a team overall. I think we still need to improve again, and there's areas that we can still improve. And obviously, two of the expensive goals that we've conceded at home here have been long range efforts from 25-30 yards. So it's I think I think collectively the players are getting better. I think as a team we're getting better, and I think that's everyone is playing their part. But I think that's the first time probably we've had different players playing, and everyone's come in and done well. Seamus has been missing with injury. Shane Duffy had been, and Shane coming into form has been a massive thing for us. Really, transforming his form has been massive as well, going back into form, and in my opinion, I think Johnny Egan could play in the Champions League. I think he should be playing in the Champions League, Johnny Egan. That's the way I feel about that. I think he's good enough.
incredible endorsement, and you have to feel that. Like, I do think there's a large part of Stephen Kenny when he's in media dealings on that he's been listening to the previous few managers who every time have gone in front of the media have gone, they're not great, are they? Like, geez, they're not great. And he feels like every time he gets the opportunity to praise the players, he's doing it. But John Egan, Champions League player.
Yeah, that's like it's a pretty big statement. Obviously, getting relegated last year might have kind of put the halt in the momentum that he was having as in terms of his career, because maybe it was just a lot of talk on this side of the Irish Sea, but there was definitely a sense that he could have potentially got a big move in his couple of seasons in the Premier League, because he was the standout central defender for that Sheffield United team, and obviously there's a sense of being out of sight, out of mind with regards to getting relegated. But I think what we've seen with these Irish players is that I think Stephen Kenny's maybe looked beyond the club that they play for to a certain point, and it seems that there's a number of them that are overperforming with regards to their club, whether it's Sheffield United or Rotherham or Wigan Athletic, whatever it is. Or St Mirren, exactly.
You know, plenty of comments coming into us, plenty of them about Stephen Kenny, whether he should stay on or not as well. And thanks a million for all those comments coming in. There's one here on Twitter from Ken Gorry saying that 2 years to prepare for the job. Look at what McCarthy was working with to see how his under-21s could straighten that senior squad. The result is one competitive win. Can someone please tell me why he's the right man for the job when every measurable metric says he's not? And a gif of Simon Cowell saying it's a no for me. Well, I think one of the big reasons that Stephen Kenny should be given the job is this type of a sentiment from Shane Duffy.
There's a constant conversation, as I'm sure you know, about Stephen's future and new contract. What are your thoughts on what should happen next?
Well, I have Stephen brilliant. I think. Listen, he's had a tough start with the whole COVID and players dropping out, not results going away. But I think, listen, if you don't think we're going in a positive way, I think you're writing your own stuff. I think we're all going in the right direction to play like the difference of football we're playing. The fans are excited for it, and for me, I think it's obvious that we love playing under and we're all fighting for him, even though under the hard situation at the start, we were still there fighting, and that's the sign of players when they play for a manager, and every single one in there in the backroom stand as well, they're all amazing. So if we went into the dressing room, everyone's happy, and that's the way it is.
I love playing under him. That's what he said. I know you couldn't hear it either, but that's what he was saying, and that's what all the players are saying. And I do think it's a huge reason as to why the players are all bought into it. Patrick, go on.
Sorry, just on that last comment there, like saying that there's been one win under Stephen Kenny. That is 100%. Like I can see why people have that view, but you can't say that under every measurable metric, I think was his phrase, that it hasn't gone overly well. Like, you can look at the measurable metrics beyond the result as well. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, the measurable metrics last night, within the 90 minutes last night, showed and proved, and it's a fact, that Ireland were on a par with Portugal. So you can't just say the measurable metrics have to be used and then just use one metric.
Only the ones that back up my argument.
Only the ones that back up my argument. You have to, if you're going to say that, you have to look at the statistics that exist within other games. And I accept that there have been terrible results, but the metrics last night weren't bad within and even the metric of a 0-0 draw against Portugal is not a bad result.
Patrick Croak saying, morning guys, what about Josh Cullen last night? Thought he contributed hugely towards us keeping possession. Good in tight spots and calm when under pressure. And it wasn't that entirely last night from a team point of view that there wasn't some of the intricacies of that neat little play that didn't land us in bother a couple of times, because it definitely did. But overall, you would have to say that Ireland's calmness and composure and technical ability to be able to play the ball around was really superb. So anyway, that was Shane Duffy, and Stephen Kenny returned the compliment.
Yeah, I thought the back three were absolutely excellent, So I thought the back three, I know Callum got man of the match. I'd have probably given it to Shane Duffy on his performances. Probably technically it's the best I've ever seen him play in terms of his range of passing, and the quality and the weight of his passing was really, really good. I know he's always been a good defender, but I thought Shane Duffy was, and I thought Seamus was very, very good, and also John Egan. The back three collectively were excellent, and Seamus defended really, really well, because there's an aerial threat there, and that's the challenge on the back post of Portugal. Because unlike other teams, like take Spain for example, Portugal carry much more of an aerial threat. And that's the problem. We're giving away inches on set plays, and we're doing our matchups. They're not matching up. So, Seamus competed brilliantly, and I thought this defended really well.
Giving away inches at set plays is a really interesting insight, isn't it? And he's talking about that in terms of our defence, but like when you look at it in attack as well, I did feel that, and we'll get into talking much more deeply about the game with Vinny Perth in a few minutes' time, but I did feel that certainly in terms of that final third that we were lacking something, that like Ogbene was getting so many, he's been fouled obviously up and down the wide channels, was probably the best outcome for us in a lot of ways, because if he had managed to get his cross away, there wasn't always options in there, and if there were, they weren't players that could compete in the air with the likes of Pepe.
Yeah, that's it exactly, that your creative players were almost being pushed into wide positions, and it was conducive to a good crossing game almost. And I'm sure that was part of Portugal's setup as well, that if they're going to play the ball over the top, let them do it and let them go out wide, because they don't necessarily have that, I guess, totemic centre forward who's going to nod the ball in if they put in a good delivery. So I don't know, I think that it comes back to maybe the lack of incision in the final third, that there's something there, that the opportunities were there for Ogbene to get in behind maybe the likes of Pepe. I know Danilo's a bit younger, but kind of a relatively aged Portugal defence. I think that worked. It was just what was the next step beyond the ball over the top and into Ogbene's path.
It got better, it felt, when Ida was on the pitch.
I was surprised that he didn't start last night. I can see why he didn't. It's been a difficult enough season for him, and maybe Ogbene and Robinson and McGrath have all showed exceptional form for Ireland over the last couple of months. So you can see why they got picked. But Ida was just so good in Faro that I was surprised he didn't start. Now, in fairness, like we had Kenny in here the other day, and Kenny was saying that Kenny Cunningham, that is, he was saying that he wouldn't have been surprised if Ireland had the lion's share of possession, which I couldn't believe at the time, because obviously Ireland had a fraction of the possession in Portugal the last time, and I expected it to be the same, and I expected Ida to start because of that lack of possession. But as it turned out, Kenny was actually kind of right. We'd half the possession last night, so it did change proceedings a little bit, and maybe Ida, when you have enough of the ball, it isn't as important as when you're playing trying to look for him as an outlet or trying to get out of your own half.
The last number of years, says Gar Arbo, we would have great seats, and 15 minutes into the match we'd be in the bar because the football was muck. We all said I'd rather watch Kenny's Dundalk playing. Ireland on the up. And I mean, look, there is definitely that thing. You want to be a serious begrudger, I have to say. I think if you're looking at that last night, not getting some level of enjoyment out of the plays that we've come from over the last couple of years, it's not quite just like watching Brazil, but not a million miles off it. Jared says Ireland's biggest problem historically has not been in playing well and getting results against the bigger teams. It has been not putting away the smaller teams. The campaign hasn't shown any improvement in this regard.
I definitely think that he's right in saying that. Like, for me, the real sickener in the last campaign was Georgia, and Georgia has been a sickener for quite some time as well. So that was definitely something that I thought at the start of the Kenny era, where there was good performances against Slovakia, obviously in the playoff, and maybe against Serbia the first day out in this campaign, like a relatively good performance. It wasn't a great performance, and there was definitely a question mark then, how would they do against Luxembourg? And then to get beaten by Luxembourg really felt like kind of a crossroads almost in this management, where I thought that they were under serious pressure. But I do think that the subsequent results against certainly the win against Azerbaijan and the last window, getting the win comprehensively against Qatar, maybe go some way to remedying that. But you can't disagree with that commenter until maybe Sunday night.
Yeah, do keep the comments coming into us. We're going to cycle through those over the course of the morning as well. 3 minutes past 8, Friday morning, the morning after an Ireland draw with Portugal. Let us know your thoughts on that. Indeed, if you're looking ahead to the All Blacks game tomorrow, or thoughts about the women's rugby and beyond, please do get them into us over the course of the morning. Pack show still to come here on OTB AM. We're going to hear from Vinny Perth in just a little bit. But keep an eye out in this ad break for the brand new Crack the Code series. It's brought to you by Whoop, which is the 24/7 personalised digital fitness and health coach that provides sleep, recovery and training insights. You can see whoop.com for much more on all of that. And this video is going to focus on hydration. It features Fenton McCarthy and Amy O'Connor.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast? If not, here's some of what you've missed over the last week.
And Pogba failed last night. Thought it was interesting last night when he went off the pitch. I didn't see a single person applauding off the pitch in that United end. You know, it's just one of them. Last night, as you said, was a perfect example. Why? He let his team down.
Like, I literally scored, started running towards Jamie, and then I just looked to the right. I just seen my mum. My mum was just up there waving her hands, like, screaming. So I just stopped and just started screaming at her. It was funny.
Subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts and download the OTB Sports app.
Definitely, you know, around racing, it's a kind of a tricky one for us because we have to weigh in as well. So we can't be drinking too much water before, because we weigh in like 2 hours before the race. So pretty much after that 2 hours, it's about like getting refueled and rehydrated essentially. So yeah, we'd use Diorlite an awful lot and stuff like that, just to make sure that you're getting hydrated as quickly as possible before the race, because you know the 2 hour window is like pretty short, especially if you're a bit dehydrated. You know, sometimes you might have to sweat down a bit to make the weight as well. So yeah, there's that aspect of it, but then it's kind of different during the week of training, because you're just trying to get as much water in as possible because you're sweating so much, especially in the lead up to Tokyo. We were doing a lot of heat training. So we had a bit of a greenhouse set up in the rowing centre with some heaters. So we were getting through like 4 or 5 litres of water in a session. It's hard, to be honest, leading up, especially when, you know, I'd probably sit around 73 or 74 kilos normally, but then I have to weigh in at 69. So the weeks before, you'd be, you know, watching what you're eating, and then you might get another kilo or so on the day, but you can't lose that much water on the day, or else you'll never get hydrated enough in that 2 hour period. So it's really planned. Like, you know, if you say you're gonna have to sweat a litre, you're gonna have to put that litre back and then more. So we kind of try to kill 2 birds with 1 stone as well, with like pre-workout and carb drinks and stuff. So you'd be getting the hydration as well as the, you know, a bit of energy for the racing.
Car insurance is boring, but you don't have to be. Get Set Go is the kind of car insurance you can sort in a few minutes online, then bounce on with your day. Are you ready for quick start insurance? Get a quote now at getsetgo.ie. MCL Insurance Services Ireland Limited, trading as getsetgo.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, proud supporters of Movember. Gentlemen, let's move.
Right, we're going to talk to Vinny Perth in a few moments' time about the football last night. Nathan Murphy will be with us later on as well, commentator of the game last night, to let us know about all of that, and presumably partaking in the quiz zone. Is that he's hanging around for that? Is he?
He certainly is. That's why he's back.
Who is it?
It is yourself versus Nathan versus Will.
you weren't sure there for a second.
No, I wasn't, but you know, we got there in the end.
Very good. It'll be shouty. That's my prediction for that. And we'll let you know what's happening in the papers in just a couple of months' time. We've Alan Quinlan as well coming up later on. We'll be talking all things obviously about the Ireland All Blacks game tomorrow, and about women's rugby as well. What a mad week it's been for the game off the pitch. A week of statements and comments and slurry spreading all over the place. And every so often you feel, looking at events the last week, the Irish sporting public get antsy about a wrong. It becomes a cause célèbre. The natives get restless, if you will. And when you're a big institution like the RFU, it might be hard to hear that. And instead, maybe the best thing is to not listen. But sometimes the natives are actually right. They were restless, you'll remember, with the FAI over Delaney, and they were restless about the FAI over women's football and about the stadium, and as well as the list, as long as your arm, in relation to that. And mostly the natives were right about that. And they were restless with the LGFA. You remember this time last year, because on All-Ireland semi-final day they moved Cork and Galway from Parnell Park 2 hours before the game was to throw in. They moved them to Croke Park, and then they gave Galway 7 minutes to warm up. And they were mostly right about that. And they were restless with Bernard O'Byrne. You'll remember not that long ago when he made a racially insensitive social media post earlier in the year. He wholeheartedly apologised, and the natives felt that might not be enough. And mostly they were right about that. They were restless with the GA, or at least the majority of players and a slight majority of Central Council were around the football structures last month, and mostly they were right about that as well. You get the gist. They get restless. No matter how much credit you think you have in the bank, they're going to be unhappy that when times are good, as Gordon Darcy said to Joe during the week, you're all we. And then when the slurry hits the fan and, you know, you allow your players to tug off next to rats, you're all day. And the natives are going to get restless about that. And maybe there comes a point when you're at 6s and 7s, or 7s and 15s, and internally you stop trying to manage the message and you realise that the best thing to do is, after all, is just listen for a bit, because sometimes the natives are right. some coverage in the back pages this morning of the women's story, and we'll get into that in just a moment's time. Here's what's happening on OTBSports.com for you this morning. Lots of reaction to the game last night. Ireland's cohesive performance is evidence that things have changed. That's Stewie Byrne's comments on the game last night. Plenty more reactions to the match as well up there as well. Player ratings from Keane Fahy as well. Across the back pages in the newspapers today, we're going to kick off at the Irish Independent for you here. More green shoots. Positive angle here from the Indo, and that's a shot of Matt Doherty getting a shot away at the Aviva last night. Ireland cry foul over late disallowed goal, but Kenny's rebuild gathers momentum. And no split in Ireland women's camp, as Porter says men back their stance. This is further fallout from Rory O'Connor and David Kelly here to the events between Anthony Eddy, David Nuzafora, the RFU and the women's team during the week. And I mean, just the week for it to have happened with Ireland on a test themselves this evening is... it's slightly bizarre to say the least. Gerrard to shake up Villa staff after signing $4 million deal. This is Stephen Gerrard on the move to Aston Villa, and it feels like it's a good and it's a right move for Stephen Gerrard. And it also feels like I was looking at a TikTok yesterday of some guy who had a portrait of Stevie G, a Rangers fan it turned out, who had a portrait of Stevie G for some reason, I'm not quite sure why, up on his wall, and he flung it on the ground and stood in it and smashed the glass everywhere. Rangers fans are not happy with him.
The video in question is he takes a video of him at his computer, and it shows the news of Stephen Gerrard gets the Villa job, and he walks out of his room, the carpet changes to like a tartan carpet, walks all the way downstairs, a couple of flights of stairs, eventually gets to the photo of Stevie G and politely takes it off the wall and places it on the ground.
Let's lash it up, we have it here.
Oh sorry, I ruined it.
The tartan carpet here was a giveaway that I didn't get when it began. Is it his house or a workplace?
He is marching with purpose.
It looks like he's in somebody else's house doing some work.
Let's not break it too badly.
I think people were pissed because of the comments that he gave in the TV interview where he said, "Do I look happy?" That was like, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah,
that's a bit of a kick in the teeth.
No, in fairness, do I look happy thing, was that not in relation to the Newcastle? Like,
was it?
The Aston Villa job hadn't become vacant when he did that interview.
Right.
So
I am happy, but that's only because you're linking me with Newcastle.
Well, exactly. Like I think people get way too wound up about a manager and their loyalty to a club, or their perceived loyalty to a club. Like, and also there was another one doing the rounds of like Gerrard saying he loves the club and he's excited for the future of the club after they won a trophy last year. I'm like, everybody's going to say that. Everybody gets caught up in the moments. Other opportunities come up, and so be it. But like, those comments were after the Europa League game last week.
And by the way, here, sports fans getting too tied up in the fact that their guy or their girl in whatever sport it is decides to go somewhere else. It's just a fact of life. That's what happens. And it brings up the constant debate that's dominated TalkSport during the week now. Like, which is a bigger club? Is Rangers a bigger club? Is Villa a bigger club? You know, and it's a win for the people who think that the Premier League is better than everything else, and there's only 2 teams in Scotland. Even that, they're not great.
Yeah,
it's the usual sort of debate that you get off the back of it.
Who is a bigger club?
Yeah, go with Aston Villa, don't you?
Wait. Do you think so? Yeah,
I would say so.
Yeah, no, I'd probably agree with you. Like, less potential to play European football, but yeah, I like it's. I mean, this is obviously going to be framed as an audition, isn't it, for the next little while with Gerrard. We're just under a month away, the 11th of December, when Villa go to Anfield. So that should be a pretty interesting staging point. Yeah.
The Irish Daily Star this morning, Ron to remember. This was the girl who's a Shelburne under 13, I think it emerged then last night, player, went on the pitch to get Ronaldo's shirt, and he was very kind and very gentle with him. I'm not sort of prone to being nice to Ronaldo for several reasons, but
the booing stopped at that exact instant.
Jesus.
She did well. She got away from the stewards pretty well. Like, ran onto the pitch. There was a
she's in the the great position there in that, like, what steward is going to rugby tackle?
Well, exactly, and her dad had the sense to maybe, I assume it was her dad, had the sense to stay off the pitch. There was another protester earlier after Ronaldo. I don't think it was the header, it was one of his other chances. I'm not sure, did it come up on TV? Not a protester. No, they're not protesting anything. Another pitch invader runs onto the pitch and tries to give Ronaldo a hug, and Ronaldo just sidesteps him and he misses the hug, and he gets tackled by his steward, so he misses the opportunity to give Ronaldo a hug.
Did you see Gavin Bazunu went up to him last night after the game, and it was like, there's actually a picture of it in one of the papers today where he kind of has the hand out. And Ronaldo was doing a really disrespectful thing of giving him the left hand, by the way.
All right.
I just saw that is bad. Like
it was like Andras Townsend all over again.
But it did feel like as if there was a little bit of like, oh, when we get inside, we do the old jersey thing. And then Bazunu's like, 13-year-old girl coming out on the pitch. No.
Do you think Ronaldo remembers Bazunu from the last time? Do you think he remembers what he said as a penalty?
It was only a very brief sort of exchange, but it didn't look like Ronaldo was like, oh yeah, sure, yeah, we'll change.
Yeah.
So Ronaldo was like, there's no chance by the time I get into that dressing room that I still have this shirt.
Yeah, it's true. I'm sure Ronaldo's got a couple of jerseys for every single game.
Plenty more coverage, as you can imagine, across the back pages this morning. We'll let you know what's happening. The rest of them a little bit later on. It's 8:15. It's Friday morning. It's the morning after the night before. Vinny Perth, Dundalk manager. Good morning to you.
Morning, man. How are we doing?
Good. We've just been picking through the bones of it here, and plenty of comments coming in, as you can imagine. It's a bit all over the place, from isn't this amazing and everything is going to be brilliant and rosy in the garden, to let's just pause a little bit. No need to rush into any awarding of a new contract just yet. Liam Brady obviously set the agenda by calling it a damp squib last night, that it didn't liven up until after the Pepe raid. Your view on all of that, Vinny? Plenty going on there.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I was in the stadium, and for once I was sitting right in the halfway line behind the dugout, so it was an amazing view. And I was sitting there, a friend of mine came over from England to watch the game, and you were sort of sitting there waiting to be excited, and we weren't really, to be honest with you. But at the same time, so that's the reality of the situation. I don't think the game really got going as a spectacle for both sides. But the reality of the situation is it was a really strong performance in terms of the development of the team. I think you can see the team was well coached. The emergence of people all over the pitch. We've got options off the bench now. And we're starting to see the emergence of a really strong team. So people who would have been in favour of Stephen staying on would have a real case after the last couple of games, and I think that was only enhanced by last night's performance. We were very, very comfortable, albeit we've got issues in terms of we didn't create enough chances, I would feel, because Portugal were quite poor on the night, I felt, and so
was that poor? Was that poor because
with
just when you talk about the excitement of Vinny and you're waiting to get excited, was part of that just we were to expect that, and that's kind of the way it's going to be against top teams like that, and part of Portugal's underperformance, and I don't want to be put words in your mouth, so contradict all of this away if you want, was to do with how well Ireland were in their face and how well Ireland were playing.
Yeah, definitely, because there's so many different things. First of all, you've got to say putting Chidozie Abunya in was a bit of a surprise to me when I seen the team sheet. So, for example, that's Stephen being brave as a manager, something that whether you like him or dislike him, we've got people on different sides of the fence. You've got to say the way he's blooded these young players and the bravery, whether it was Owen Bamadelli, away in Portugal. There's loads of examples of him being really brave. So, but if you remember the kickouts for Portugal in the first half, I turned to a friend of mine who'd worked under Stephen as well and said, that's him in terms of Jamie McGrath getting given out to by the city referee, having his foot half an inch inside of the box. But they weren't doing the typical Ireland thing over the last few years. Everyone dropping off, letting Portugal have it and trying to counter-attack. They were in their face, they were pressurising them, they weren't letting them settle. The Portugal goalkeeper became unsettled. So that's real. Patricio had an awful game, actually. And that's real bravery in so many different departments. So from that point of view, it was really good. It was really positive. It was another building stone of creating a really strong team. But I've been at the last, 4 games, whatever it is, and the crowd have been outstanding. But we've sort of given them something, as in we were chasing a game, we were trying to get back into it, and he couldn't get going. And that's because, they were good at times, but that's because we didn't have enough flair in our attack, for want of a better word, or enough big chances or sustained pressure at any stage. So I can understand Liam Brady's comments of a dab squib. I felt coming away for that, we probably missed an opportunity, which is a great sign, in its own way.
Vinny, you've been saying for a while on the show that Ireland really need to find a number 10, and it did feel that creativity or that incisive final pass was missing last night.
Yeah, the challenge is, I won't bore anybody about systems or different things, but challenge is the system we play at times doesn't lend itself to a 10, but it does as well. Like last night, for example, that's why I feel we missed an opportunity in terms of, it's hard to be critical of Stephen, because I'm looking, when Adam Ida came on, I thought he was outstanding. And I was like, if we had played him, but if you had played him, then you wouldn't have given Chidozie his opportunity. So you can't have it every way. But when Pepe got sent off, I was like, I just felt that was the time there for an Alan Brown, say, in the 10. And we did bring on Will Keane, who's a real talent in that number 10 position. But it was like 90th minute, the board had gone up for 5 minutes. So I felt that was the creativity we need. Callum Robinson, for me, ran out of a bit of energy. Or not energy, but energy. He was tired and he was doing a couple of sloppy things. So it was crying out for that playmaker there. But it's hard to be critical. You know, we've drawn with Portugal and we're very comfortable in the game. So I'm trying not to be critical like Liam Brady, but at the same time, as I keep saying, a number 10 or a bit more creativity from whether, particularly if you're going to play that system, your fullbacks have to give it to you. And once or twice, Matt Doherty did. Unfortunately, Andy Stevens didn't give us the same creativity on the other side.
Is there a way to, like you said about Chidozie Ogbene getting his chance at Ida's expense, is there any way to get the two of them and Robinson and McGrath, like is there any way to get all of these players on the pitch?
Yeah, there is, but remember, you have to respect the opposition of Portugal. And I think if you had the game back as a manager, you'd look at it slightly different, because I think Portugal were so below par that maybe you could have got away with Jamie McGrath, without Jamie McGrath, in one sense, in terms of the role he was doing. He was playing as a forward, but once they lost the ball, he came back into that midfield three. So, you know, you could have left out Jamie, for argument's sake, and played Callum Robinson, Chidozie and Adam Ida as your front three. But if you got beaten 2 or 3, you were heavily criticised for that, you know. So it's the life of a manager. It's fine margins. So, but when you're playing against lesser opposition, I would say then you have to look at that, and we might see that against Luxembourg, where he's a bit more attack-minded in that front three. You might see a number 10 with 2 centre forwards. Again, people have keep going on about Chelsea, but if you think about Chelsea, they'll do that sometimes where they play. People go on about Chelsea because we play a similar system, but they'll play one number 10, say Mason Mount, with Lukaku and Timo Werner, for argument's sake, when they're comfortable that they're home. So there is different options like that for Ireland. So, but we seen Callum Robinson be excellent off Adam Ida in the last game. So there's definitely options now, and that's where the team has really developed. I think there's options off the bench, and there's options with the starting 11. So it's been a really positive couple of games for the side.
You said earlier on that you weren't going to bore us about systems, but do please for a second, because even when the goal that came about at the end actually came through, like a lot of our play was coming from the wide channels, and even that goal kind of came from a wide channel. I was struck actually looking at some of the highlights on Virgin last night from some of the other matches across all the different groups, and some of the goals that would come from players running through off the shoulder at different teams at different systems or whatever. But it actually just struck me that it wasn't a thing that ever seemed like an option for us last night, that almost sort of kind of direct route to goal. Does that get a bit more, is that a way we can play? Are there chances we can create, and does it get a bit more straightforward to do that when you have Ida on the pitch?
Yeah, I think Ida gives you the focal point in terms of so, you know, we've seen it away in Portugal, for argument's sake. He was excellent against Diaz, so you can have runners off him, so the 2 centre halves are worried about a big lad up front. But I think it's more than that. So a good example of the game, like Ireland have a new tactic, and they didn't use it last night. So in a throw-in situation, they'd go short, but they would send Shane Duffy up for the corner. It's not that they're going to go long, or for a throw-in, it's not that they're going to go long into the box. It's that they try and work something for a cross for Shane Duffy. So there's loads of different things that happen now in the modern game. But it doesn't have to... Yes, Adam Ida makes a huge difference. It gives us a platform. But if at the game, and I haven't seen the game back yet, but at the game, I felt that Matt Doherty, particularly in the last 20 minutes, stopped giving us the width that was needed, particularly when Portugal went down to 10 men. Albeit he turned up and scored the goal that at the game looked a perfectly good goal, to be honest with you. So, yeah, it's that like all great goals. If you go back to Chelsea or that system, because it's so easy for our listeners to understand it. The amount of times you see Azpilicueta stepping out as a centre half, or Rudiger even at times stepping out and creating the 3v2 in a wide area. We have that at times with Seamus Coleman. We just need a little bit more quality in the final area. And I think that's the icing on the cake with this side. I think we've developed into a well-structured, tactically strong team. And I think the coaching staff will look at last night's game. They'll show the lads video over the next couple of days. And they may point out, for example, to Matt Doherty that he's got to give us more width at times. So when the ball is on one side of the pitch, we see it with all the great teams, whether it's Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, when the ball's on one side of the pitch, it comes to the number 6 and Josh Cullen. He puts it out to the opposite side to Matt Doherty, and that's where teams struggle. So there will be all of that stuff going on. And as I keep saying, you can tell the staff have a real understanding of where this team is going to. You can tell there's patterns of play building. But whether people like it or not, the hardest part is the final part, as in the final third. That's why football is so difficult. Creating chances is the hardest part.
How much, when you're picking your attack, Vinny, would you be taking into account what those 3 most advanced Ireland players are doing without the ball? Because it did seem the press last night was pretty good. Like, there were times when the Portuguese kick out was like, okay, lads, just get up the pitch, we're going long here because we feel like we're under a bit of pressure here. Like, is there a sense that he's picking out Benny there because of what he brings in the pressing department?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other one that sort of had a quiet game but had an outstanding game at the same time, I would say from the staff's point of view, was Jamie McGrath. When I say he had a quiet game, Jamie's got great feet on the ball, but when Jamie has always played for us at Dundalk or under Stephen, our GPS records will tell you his running stats are off the charts. And I know Jim Goodwin at St Mirren would say the same thing about him. So Jamie's running stats from that sort of number 10 area is huge. So that's why he would have got into the team last night. And the same with the pace on the sort of counter-attack from Chidozie. So, and we know Callum Robson is a bundle of energy as well. So there's no doubt that was a ploy by Stephen to get his front 3 to unsettle Portugal and not let them have easy possession. So, yeah, absolutely. Like, I think Adam Ida can work hard, to be fair to him. There's no doubt about it. But when you've got players like that can really start to high press and you will pick them, particularly against the opposition you're playing against. Portugal's fullbacks, without Cancelo, for argument's sake, aren't the most mobile, so therefore he was able to be brave in his front 3 and it turned in their favour. I thought it was a really good decision by the staff on that one.
So, I mean, it is the question of the morning. Vinny, are you seeing enough progression? All indications are the FAI are going to make some sort of an announcement at some point quite soon in relation to Stephen Kenny's future. Are we seeing enough do we need to see a bit more? Obviously, we've Luxembourg on Sunday night. I'm sure that'll be instructive in itself. But are you in the camp that needs to see a bit more before we get this done, or have we enough evidence now?
Yeah, look, it's difficult. I'm talking about a personal friend here that I'd love to see given another 2 years. So of that, there's no doubt. But I mean, I challenge anyone not to tell me the development of people like Josh Cullen last night. He was absolutely outstanding. He's someone I actually doubted in terms of how good he was. And I looked at him last night and I thought he was outstanding. I thought he was the best player on the pitch for long periods. So when you look at so many players, of young players, and we all thought it was going to be Aaron Connolly, Troy Parrott for obvious reasons, and maybe their time will come. I just hope we don't give up on them too early. But when you look at the development this side, you look at so many young players now have 50, 60 caps between them. There's no doubt we've developed a team. And the manager's done an outstanding job in that sense. Yes, it's a results business, but as results have now started to turn, you can't argue with the development of this side. And I think it would be foolish of the FAI now at this stage not to go and back this project and give it minimum another 2 years, because even last night as Stephen's assistant for 10 years, I looked at when Pepe got sent off, my eyes went straight to Stephen. And I think he should have made a change right there and went for the game. And I think if he had a contract, he might have done it. That's just my own personal opinion. I'm knowing him so well. And he was a little bit longer. Maybe he was reluctant to make that change because it's a result business. And the draw is it's an excellent result, but he could have got an outstanding result. And maybe the FAI just need to give that man a little bit more backing. And I'm not saying you haven't backed them off the pitch. If you get the point, to make it. I mean, backing as in saying, well, we believe in this project. Let's go for it. Let's continue this development. And I think it's the obvious solution now for Irish football, in my opinion.
So you think the uncertainty around his future has actually seeped into his decision making as a manager?
No. I think that's it's a big jump, right? But my personal opinion was that Stephen Eoin was so brave in his decisions. We've seen that with so many big calls over these 18 months with these young players, that I think he should have made a change right there and went for it. Put an Alan Brown in, or if it was Will Keane, that was the decision he was going to make, and spend 10 minutes with real pressure, with the extra body, with that freshness in the forward area, and gone for the game. But every manager is the same. It's a result business. You're thinking, is this draw a very, very good result that helps me? Or if I make a silly decision here now and go for the game and get done by a Ronaldo moment at the end, will I look foolish? And I think if you have a long-term contract, you make the braver decision. And we want our manager to be brave. We want them to excite us. We want that last 10 minutes of real passion from the Irish crowd. And I think having a secure manager makes that decision a lot easier. Definitely do that. So I felt that was a real moment for us last night.
Yeah, that's really interesting stuff. Now, we didn't want to let you away, Vinny, if you're okay to talk briefly about what's happening. You're wearing the top there, so I'm taking that as an indication that you're all right to field a question about Dundalk.
Yeah, my Wi-Fi's just gone here.
Big events, obviously, during the week. And gone back now to Andy Connolly. Obviously, fans have been delighted. It's been a really good, is it 6 weeks? Feels like it's been a bit more than that for you. Things are back on track, and I'm assuming that it's very much, we've just been talking about Stephen Kenny, but your intention to continue that good work, and the club almost back in the up now again.
Yeah, listen, first of all, I think Eoin could put us back. He's had us on the red a couple of times. When we've won some big games, he's never put us in that green, so in our charts on a Monday morning. So I'll be searching him out before Christmas at some stage.
Do you think you're getting me mixed up with Johnny Ward there?
Yeah, well, okay, we move on swiftly. No, look, there's no doubt. I think it has the potential to be a really positive move. There's no doubt Dundalk lost that connection to the community, and these guys, Andy Connolly and Stat Sports guys, will definitely bring that back. Now, the decision making now has to begin very quickly. And they've got a lot of work to do. People have said Peak 6 regime was disastrous. They've done a double. They won 3 out of 4 trophies in the second year. They've got to a group stage Europa League. They won an FAI Cup, and now they're gone. But there's no doubt that doesn't mask over the huge errors that were made. The management of the club wasn't good enough, and so we now have people who understand the club and understand the what it takes to run a League of Ireland club. So I think from that sense, it's a really positive move. But at the same time, it's an expensive league to operate in now. We've got I won't talk about other clubs, but we've got a lot of clubs in our league now who have got big finance in place and well-structured clubs, a lot of work done early. So we're behind the 8 ball as a club in Dundalk. So while it's a really positive week for the club, we've got a lot of work to do over the next couple of weeks to ensure it plays out on the pitch next January, February, March, and into next year.
Yeah, well, look, we'll have a word in Eoin's ear here about that Gillette Power Rankings on a Monday morning and see what we can do about that. But exciting times, and I really enjoyed your comments on the Ireland game last night, and best of luck again for the next few weeks. Thanks, Vinny.
Thanks a lot, appreciate that, and thank you.
Thanks a lot, Vinny Perth. Dundalk manager on the line there, picking through the bones of last night. And there is a flood of comments coming into us about the match last night, and they're pretty diverse. A lot of differing opinion out there about whether Stephen Kenny should be given a new contract or not. It does feel as if the narrative has shifted away from whether he's the right man or not. It's just to whether he should get a new contract now or not. And again, similarly, sort of divided views on that. But we will keep those coming to you over the course of the morning as well. If you have any thoughts on the game last night or indeed the rugby into the weekend, do fire them into us. It's 8:35. It's a Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM, and we've plenty still to come. We've a live crappy quiz coming your way a little bit later on. What could possibly go wrong? It is OTB AM with Gillette, proud sponsors of Movember. Gentlemen, let's mow. Now, on this week's Bod Pod, Brian O'Driscoll joined Ger Gilroy for a complete dissection of the Irish team announced to take on the All Blacks this weekend. You can get Brian's full bumper breakdown now. It's exclusively on the OTB Sports app for the first 24 hours. So head along to the App Store or the Play Store, whatever it is, wherever it is you pick up your apps, and download the OTB Sports app now, and we'll let you know whenever the good stuff is in. But here is why Brian thinks that New Zealand are coming into this weekend with a newfound respect for Ireland.
What do you expect from the team that New Zealand have named in terms of how they approach the game? Because you've talked about their defence. Maybe tease that out for us a bit and why that look a bit different.
Yeah, first of all, I think there is a newfound respect for Ireland in New Zealand, which wasn't in existence prior to Soldier Field. I think even listening to Sean Fitzpatrick and Richie McCaw, who played it down a little bit more before that game over in Chicago, they talked about how they always felt that they could get the job done irrespective of what went on. Even in 2013, when they were 5 points behind when the clock went red, they still fancied themselves. Whereas now I do feel, and just reading some of the comments from Perenara during the week, talking about there's more analysis going on, there's more of a perception as to what way Ireland are playing. Before it was very New Zealand, focusing on New Zealand, and irrespective of what you threw at them, they would score more points or they'd be able to deal with it. I do feel as though there's a bit more analysis going on, and they do feel that they will have a proper game on their hands and that they could lose this if they don't play well. And it's great that Ireland have managed to get to that place. But talk about the defensive side of things. Again, the psychology in New Zealand was always to practice with the ball in hand. The defensive side of things was less fun, less entertaining, a bit of organisation, but not and then the physicality that was just expected of you. Whereas, thinking about physical defence and organisational structures in that is a relatively new phenomenon in New Zealand. Beforehand, they would always have been thought to have been quite a soft defence, quite a passive defence, but yet again just managed to get the job done. All proficient tacklers. Whereas now they're defending an awful lot more square. Wait to watch Perenara, who's particularly good at it. He's taking a lot of flyers, a la Gareth Davis in Wales, where he'll try and preempt when the scrum half's going to pass the ball, and he'll come shooting from the chip zone in behind the ruck and try and charge the first receiver and kind of rattle them a little bit, maybe get a hit in and then just try and change the momentum. So there's small little tweaks and changes to this New Zealand defensive system that have been incorporated in more recent times that maybe they wouldn't. I'm not saying they didn't have the respect for teams with it before, but they never felt they needed that focus. Whereas now I feel as though they realise that they can use their defence as an attacking weapon on top of their ball handling game.
Yep, that is Brian O'Driscoll in conversation with Jerry. You can check out that full chat. The OTB Sports app is the only place to get it, exclusively live for 24 hours before it goes live across all OTB channels. And as I said a little bit earlier on, head along to your app store to download the good stuff there, and we'll keep you up to speed with whatever else is going on in the world of rugby as well. So that is that. Plenty of comments still coming into us, by the way. We've Alan Quinlan coming up in just a couple of moments' time about the rugby. Plenty of comments still coming out about the football. It's very much dominating the agenda last night, and it must be said that Liam Brady's comments at the in the post-match coverage last night on RTE has definitely fueled a lot of the narrative as well about it being a damn squib. And really interesting to hear Vinny Perth just a few moments ago saying that he would largely have agreed with that, but I think he was maybe a bit more understanding as to why that was the case, rather than Liam Brady's. It's all a bit I don't think he thinks it's going to end that well. Daisha Dude says, bringing on McLean and Horan made us quite negative. McLean's first touch is awful, his second touch is square. Horan kept looking for the 70-yard pass and inevitably surrendered possession. like it is hard when you go beyond. Like we're talking there about how do you get 4 attack-minded players into the team, but it is equally hard, and it's always going to be the case with a country like ours that like the depth. And actually, there's a case that James McLean could have started that game and might have offered something more than Enda Stevens last night. But yeah, it is hard that you're never going to have the depth.
No, but you're right though. Like McLean or Stevens, or even when Bamadelli is back, Matt Doherty are quite the list of options at left wing back, and I think we've got depth there. And I think obviously throw Doherty and Coleman in at right back. I think at wing back it's one of the areas where we do have depth. I suspect that in midfield as well over the next couple of years there may be a couple of interesting options as well as time goes by. Like you technically Ireland have depth in that department at the moment. It's just a lack of quality maybe in midfield. But you look at the likes of Jason Knight, and even if you go down a little bit younger to the likes of Gavin Kilkenny, you would expect big things from them over the next couple of years, or certainly they've given enough to be excited about and to be hopeful about over the next little while, and maybe that department will come good over the next few years. And even when it comes to someone like Jason Malumbi and maybe even Will Smallbone, there's no sense that they're not going to make some sort of resurgence and get back on track to their level of improvement early in their careers as well. So when it comes to wing backs in midfield, I'd be relatively hopeful actually. But it's just there's a big difference between like producing 7 out of 10 players and actually having that 9 out of 10 who can unlock a defence at this level.
8:41 Friday morning, time to talk rugby. Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Morning lads, how are you?
Good. We'll get into the All Blacks in just a minute, but it's important I think that we start the chat with major events of the week. Obviously the RFU and the fallout ahead of the timing of it is a little bit off the charts obviously with the test for the team tonight. But Anthony Eddy, Quinny, I'm sure you followed events. He's apologised to the players for his comments during the week. Reports that the RFU performance director David Nusafora called Cliona Maloney during the week, the Irish hooker, to take her to task over airing her views on the matter on Twitter. None of that's been confirmed, but they're the reports that are out there from scrumqueens.com. And at best, it feels like a pretty shocking failure on Nusafora and Eddie's part to read the room, Quinny. And at worst, maybe the bubbling up again of a lack of commitment to the women's game. I think there's a lot of people maybe feeling that way this week. We've seen things obviously like the facilities fandango last month and the criticism of no 15s contracts. At the end of the week, what's your view on the whole thing?
It's a bit of a mess. It's not ideal preparation for the women when they ahead of that game tonight. It's a very strange one, I think, because I don't know why there was a need for a media briefing. And you mentioned read the room and understand the kind of mood of where the women's game is at the moment. He obviously wasn't sensitive to the way things are. But on the other hand, and I've said this before, and it's kind of dangerous territory for me saying it, the team that failed to qualify for the World Cup, I think they would have got a lot of support and they would have got a lot of resources for their qualification. I think he just got everything pretty much wrong this week in laying the blame totally on the players for their failure to qualify.
Is that the nub of it, Quinny? Just because on that point about the resources and the performance of the team, like I'm sure that most of the players wouldn't dispute that they had a major part.
One thing I'd ask you, Adrian, and I can't, and I'm trying to be balanced here. Nobody has come out and said where the failings are for the IRFU. So none of the women have come out and said, well, we should have got this, and this. We understand, and I understand that the All-Ireland League and the resources around the game need to improve. And maybe that's what Anthony Eddy should have come out and said, that we need to improve things at grassroots level, and here's some tangible kind of supports that we're going to put in place. We're still waiting on the review. But I don't know. You tell me. Have you seen any of I haven't seen any of the players give specifics about what's needed and what the failings have been.
Yeah, my view on it is that I think that the upset on behalf of the players this week,
it's the timing and it's the mood of it.
Absolutely, 100% to do with the timing. Not only in terms of the test tonight, but also the fact that the review is ongoing. The time for making public utterances about your own view.
I agree
on
100%.
And that's not an insignificant thing. Like pulling against the women's team is the women's rugby director.
Yes, that was crazy, and it shouldn't have happened. Because when they're in a sensitive, tough situation, they needed some positive messages if he was coming out this week, and it kind of laid a lot of the blame. We can't get away from the fact, Adrian, that the performances were poor, and they've got to take ownership of that themselves. The women, the performances were poor, the mistakes they made. The coach is now gone. Greg McWilliams has been appointed, who's a brilliant appointment. And since he's been appointed, I've spoke to numerous people who know him, and he's a fantastic appointment. So it's really what he said this week. But if it was the men's game and the men were criticised for not making a World Cup, would it be different? I think the women obviously need some positive messages. They need some support. They need some reassurance that they're going to be helped more, and that things are going to be improved. But they did get very well supported, and what he said in that is very true. They were very well prepared and well supported. I think we go back to the Interpros situation. That was a mistake. All those Interpros should have been pushed back a few weeks previously, and the national players should have been playing in them to get game time. They were undercooked as regards game preparation. But the mood is totally, the mood in the camp this week. It needed to be positive messages, and in a way that if he's saying that, look, it is the way he kind of put it was totally down to the women and their lack of performance and their failings, which was totally wrong, because it is a very sensitive situation at the moment, and I'm not sure there was a need to even have a press briefing this week. Wait for the report to come out, dissect that, do it in conjunction with some of the senior players, get them involved. I've been involved in some of those reviews before, whether it be at provincial level or national level, and they need to have a voice as well. But like I said, I can't read anywhere where anybody's saying, what are the failings? Here's
but I don't think it's the time for that. I don't think it's the time for it.
No, it's not. It's not. And there will be a time for that.
And I do think that I do think that the players will agree wholeheartedly with you that they, of course, have to put their hand up.
Catherine Dane did say that this week. Like, she has been on the record and said that it's a bit of a cop-out, that we're not taking enough accountability. She said, behind closed doors as players, we've done our debrief, we've acknowledged our mistakes, and we're really keen to take responsibility. And then she goes on to say, we were at the wheel in Italy, and a lot of those mistakes that were made, it was up to us to adapt and change our plans. I guess both of these things can be true, Alan, that, I mean, the IRFU could do a hell of a lot more. The players could have played better, and they underperformed in the qualification.
Yeah, there's
campaign.
A balance, and the timing this week going has been wrong. They needed some positive messages and support, but it's created unnecessary tension, and I suppose it would be much better if this stuff was done behind closed doors, and they both came out and spoke about ownership and responsibility and what needs to change. So it's been a bit of a mess, really, and it's different. When I said the men would receive the same sort of, would get lambasted like they did after the World Cup, there is a difference, because as professional men and professional rugby players, they've been at the coalface for a long, long time. A lot of these women had just kind of come into the setup in the last couple of years. There's a lot of new caps. They're young girls, so they're not able for that kind of negativity and that stuff. So that's why, of course, with Anthony Eddy, the messages he put out were wrong, and the timing was wrong. And you need to be sensitive.
Can I ask you one very quickly? Just last one on this. You mentioned about the men's team. Would you like to see more it feels like a lot of the men's commentary around it, and players get asked about it, and they're like, they either say, well, I haven't seen very much about that, so I'm not sure, or there's a lot of sort of evasive commentary around it. Like you saw with the men's football team a number of months ago, that eventually they stood up to the plate and said, listen, we're not happy that the women's national team are getting paid less match fees than us. We're drawing a line in the sand, and we're going to help contribute to that. Like, that was a very proactive, tangible outcome. Would you know, as I said, a lot of the commentary from the men's team has tended to be, I wouldn't like to see that happen to my daughter. I haven't seen very much of it. Not a huge amount of it, very tangible support of the women's team. Would you like to see more of that from them?
It's difficult, and I imagine myself as a player being asked these questions. They're trying to be politically correct, because at the end of the day, the IRFU are their employers. They're not the women's employers, because they're not full-time professionals. So I think, you know, when you see what's happening in Wales when the Welsh are contracting their women's players, and if we get to that situation, of course, I'd love to see the players having some sort of contribution or more support towards the women's team. It's a difficult situation, Adrian, and it's kind of hypothetical as well, because they can't come out, and it's hard to understand this, because you've got to be very sensitive as regards the criticism you give, because you've got to put it in perspective, that these are amateur players. The All-Ireland League they play in is not competitive enough right across the board, and they're expected to go out and play for Ireland. And look, France, New Zealand, England, they're all at a different level, because they're all professionals, and they have more resources and more opportunities to train and play full time. So it's a very difficult situation. But yes, it'd be lovely if the men could kind of give more tangible support and realistic support to the women's team, whether that be coaching. I hear a lot of people giving out about the women's game, ex-players. How many of those ex-players go out and coach a women's team in a rugby club? And I would say that to people. The people who jump on the bandwagon here and criticise the IRFU or the women's game, go out to your local club, coach an underage women's team, make a difference that way. Get involved if you want to support the women's game. They do need support, they do need help.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people here who are jumping on the bandwagon, and I don't see them do anything. I don't even see them give realistic options as to how we can improve the women's game, because it'd be wonderful to improve the women's game. And I want to make the point that, you know, my cousin 15, 20 years ago in Clanwilliam, she was captain of the women's team in the club. It was the best thing ever for the club. They went on and won a trophy. It was celebrated like the men had won a trophy in the club. It was brilliant. They came into the club, they got involved in different committees, they got involved in the support networks in my club in Clanwilliam, and it was absolutely fantastic. So I would love to see, you know, more clubs throughout the country embrace that, and it has to kind of start at grassroots level. There was a mini competition, Ballycollig last week. There was over 200 girls there, 24 teams there from all over the country. We need to see more of that, and that's the stuff maybe that Anthony Eddy should have focused on, saying, look, we want to, as the RFU, we want to try and encourage this and support this more often. But the women themselves have got to take criticism. The RFU have got to take criticism. It isn't one side or the other. The High Performance Centre in Abbottstown is state of the art, and the support networks that are available to all the teams, whether men's or women's, are second to none. So the people who are kind of giving out and jumping on whichever side, the RFU or the women's side here, give tangible reasons or get involved in the game yourself.
It'll play out, I'm sure, and there's a press conference today as well. We'll see what happens there. Let's talk about the All Blacks game tomorrow. The team news obviously was in since we last spoke to you. Jump in wherever you want. Is it Gibson Park? Is that the obvious place, or what are you thinking?
I didn't think there'd be any changes, to be honest, for a number of reasons. One, they played really well together as a unit. We said this last week, that, and even prior to the selection for the Japanese game, you know, people maybe were looking for more experimentation. You've got to try and get some cohesion before you play a team like New Zealand. You just can't go out and put a team together who haven't played. So that's what happened. And I think the team that played last week was that selection was based on who's going to play against the All Blacks as well this weekend. Gibson Park was really good, and Johnny Sexton was good. The ball was on a plate for them. The breakdown was excellent. They were accurate. They were aggressive. Are they going to have the same sort of time and speed of ball this week? Very unlikely. If they do, it'll be fantastic. But you don't get that sort of clean cohesion and speed of ball against New Zealand. You won't get the opportunities. You might get one or two line breaks in the game. You've got to have anticipation and support runners and take your chances if they appear, because it's a tough 80 minutes when you play New Zealand at any stage, at any time. I think Eoin Henderson coming into the second row is something that I kind of thought I kind of thought was horses for courses. I think it's kind of, I think it's an area that we've got to be really competitive. James Ryan and Eoin Henderson now who start, they're coming up against the two best second rows probably in the world, bar Etzebeth maybe, and Lou De Jager for South Africa, RG Snyman when he's playing, they're right up there, and they've consistently been outstanding. I remember Retallick making his debut in 2012 in New Zealand. I was down there. I did the game for Sky as a commentator, and I just remember seeing the abrasiveness, the footballing ability, the power of this guy. He's an incredible rugby player, and so Henderson has to come in. But I would say he's got to bring an edge. He's got to bring an anger. He's got to bring a real physicality. And sometimes Eoin Henderson's a wonderful footballer, and it's kind of like if you poke him or irritate him a little bit, he comes alive and more aggressive. And that's the one criticism I would have had over the years. He's a wonderful footballer, that he needs to be kind of an enforcer, and he needs to get into Retallick and Whitelock's face. Is it harsh and burn? It is, and he's probably paying the price for he being a utility player and being able to play in the back row as well. But having an ability to bring him off the bench as well should be a positive step for Ireland.
Yeah. I saw Ian Foster's comments during the week that it's been much talked about the Irish style. He was saying he's seen evidence of it off the back of the end of the last Six Nations and obviously into the Japan game last week. Is he right about all that? It doesn't strike me as a guy who tends to play very many mind games, that where the evolution is here.
Yeah, I think we did see it towards the end of the Six Nations. I think particularly that England game, Scotland. There was moments, and then they were in a very comfortable position in that Six Nations game, and then Scotland came right back. Things started to unravel. Sexton gets the kick from the touchline to win it. But I think against England, yeah, you saw some stuff coming together. You saw the strike move, obviously for Keith Earls' try. Sometimes those things don't work. Maybe we'll see something tomorrow. We saw Stockdale's try a few years ago when we beat New Zealand in Dublin. You may have only one or two opportunities in the game to do that, but they have improved, and probably the passes are starting to stick a little bit better. But look, it depends what kind of ball you get, Adrian. If the ball is slowed down and they're not making gain lines tomorrow, you have no option but to kick it, because if you play around and mess around with the ball too much, the pressure and the aggression that they apply it can be very difficult. So it's about executing when the opportunities happen, and they'll take confidence from last week. Well, I think New Zealand did get three intercept tries against Wales. That kind of tells its own story about the danger that they possess. Barrett got two intercepts himself, so they've got to be careful and play in the right areas. But I look at the Chicago game as well back in 2016, and they brought an ambition and a desire to really play and go after New Zealand, attack them, put the ball through the hands, and run onto the ball with aggression, and they caused them all sorts of problems. So I think we scored 5 tries in that game. Will we do something similar tomorrow? It's unlikely. It's going to be a very, very difficult challenge, and probably from last week we have a bit too much optimism, which I'd be very wary of, but there is a template there. South Africa probably should have beaten them at the end of September. They lost 19-17 in that rugby championship game, and then 2 weeks or the week later they did beat them 31-29. So there's a template there about not giving them time and space to play and really getting stuck into them. It's easier said than done because sometimes they're hard to stop. But I think the forward pack tomorrow have got to be really aggressive and work as a unit and frustrate New Zealand. A lot of these Irish players have done it before in those 2 games. Will they do it tomorrow? I don't know. It's a difficult one.
You're in a word, Ireland or New Zealand?
Look, I think New Zealand are favourites. To be honest, part of me doesn't. I just want Ireland to be competitive. I think we probably have peaked in between the last World Cup and if we win tomorrow, will we get excited again? I think there's a lot of good young players. Yeah, and look, we've only beaten them twice, and I think we played them 32 or 33 times, Adrian.
Yeah,
seems like a small number when you think we've been playing them since 1900 or something. But a lot of games didn't go on. Every 10 years we played them back in those days. But I think we have a good chance, and we've the one thing I want to see tomorrow is Ireland just not standing off and kind of containing them. I'd love to see us, if we lose the game, which I think we probably will, just to be really competitive and cause them a few problems. But it's difficult when you play this size. No matter who wears that black jersey, they can be very good.
For a change, I hope you're wrong. Quinny, thanks a million. Good man. Enjoy the game.
Cheers. Thanks, lads.
And Quinlan from the Red 78 podcast joining us on the line there to look ahead to the weekend games and obviously pick through the women's events as well. Just before we get into our next item, I wanted to let you know that upcoming shortly, OTB Sports, we've partnered with Science Week, and we're asking what challenges are most important to us and how science might help. You can visit scienceweek.ie to share your ideas and find out about the events taking place throughout Science Week 2021. In just a few minutes' time, we're going to hit an ad break and you'll see a snippet of Sheahan's video about the future of stadiums, and that'll be upcoming in a little bit. But scienceweek.ie for much more on all of those details. You'll see that myself and Eoin look like an absolute state, and you'll have seen Ger as well during the week. You are, of course, watching OTB AM, and we are, of course, brought to you with Gillette, who are, of course, proud sponsors of Movember. Gentlemen, let's mow. Joseph Conroy, let's mow.
Morning, guys. How's it going?
It's outrageous that in this ranking that you are not also an entrant in this. That is quite the task.
Given how things fell, I decided to fall on my shield and exclude myself from the rankings, because I had actually started this before November. So, naturally, there's a space for everything, in the Mo family, and November is nice and inclusive. But, I just thought I'd respectively step aside, but that might be something to get back into in a moment.
How long did it take your upper lip to get that hairy?
Genuinely, so I grew this during the second lockdown, and I'd say 8 weeks was like the point where you were kind of not really going out, but I'd say 8 weeks was like, it took a lot of it kind of 8 to 12 weeks sometimes. I'd say 8 weeks though was when you kind of get to the point where, okay, I'm actually happy stepping outside with this. So when the lockdown did end, I was good to go. So that was my tactic. I started last February. So cheat sheet for next year if you want to tackle November, and get the Christmas out of the way and get on it.
You were like, screw you, Neil Martin. I don't care what you're announcing. I ain't going anywhere for the next Tesco online. Bring the good stuff.
Do something productive during this time. Just kind of quickly before we do get into our off the ball ranking this morning. I'm not sure if you've lost me there.
No, we have yet.
Sorry. Before we get into things, we've got some inspiration in it. I'm back at the Irish football legend. Here's Mick McCarthy, a fresh face, Mick McCarthy in the early days at Barnsley. That's now. I mean, I don't know where to start with that. This look obviously matured. We've got him later on at City, but I think they're both very different and both set of looks. And it's not necessarily something I've seen a light shined on. And when we talk so much about the Mick McCarthy legacy, it's something that needs a little bit more airtime.
Yeah, it's the sort of, like, we're all here and we're sort of, the way like you trim it up a little bit and you definitely, Joe, you're doing a bit of work there. Mick just seems like he grew that thing on his lip. I ain't ever touching it. It ain't getting any treatment. There's no oil going into that. It's a hedge all of its own.
Yeah, I don't know, he would have been primed for a Gillette, some type of Gillette deal back in the day to maybe tidy that up for him. Going through a few more legends, Irish football legends we've got here. Yeah. friend of the show. What an ambassador of the Tash. Consistent through his playing days. You remember as well, maybe in the 90s on Match of the Day, kept it going strong. But, I mean, what a class act.
Yeah.
Another man we want to touch on, and another class act, another man very much flying the flag here is Steve Highway. Look at this beautiful product. Played for Ireland through the 70s and the early 80s. Beautiful O'Neill skier, beautiful Tash. What's not to like? One last quick bit of inspiration. A rare sighting. This is coming from north of the border, but a rare sighting of George Best.
Nice.
There was a time when I think everything he did with side, he did with panache. He went with the beard at other times, but he's working the Tash there. It's working for him. Everyone's a winner.
When you're a handsome man like all of us, obviously, you can do what you want.
Yeah, exactly. That goes a long way. This brings us on to the OTB AM derby of rankings, the controversial first rankings. Going to be putting my phone on airplane mode after this. We're starting off, it has to be said, in third position. I mean, it's been talking to town. It's been controversial. Yeah, Gilroy. There's two ways this can go from here. Either it's he came on the show. He said, "I'm cheating." He's now, he sent on a picture late this morning with closer to a clean shave, still not clean shaven. I want to see more precision here. We're going to take in the caveats. For me, it comes down to over the next few weeks, is this a VAR goal that was offside, that we're going back and, nice try.
Is he jumping all over the keeper, Joe, is what you're asking?
Exactly. Or is he kind of like a Canelo Alvarez, serves a doping ban, there'd be that asterisk, but as he scales new heights, people kind of reassess that. People will kind of talk about him in the pantheon of greats. So
it's the arc of his Tash is what you're talking about.
Test positive for Miracle Grow.
Exactly. So there's a road back here. It's up to him to maybe wow us and redefine the legacy of this Tash. But as for now, highly contentious. It's sitting in third place. In second place is Adrian Barry. I've got to say it's popping a little bit better on the YouTube stream than in this photo from earlier this morning, just the way the lighting's worked out.
Ginger really hops off the screen, Joe, I've been told.
Exactly, and you've alluded to being a little bit late to the party. I mean, we don't like to hear that type of talk.
Fire up the pic there, Emma, if you haven't. Give people a good old, there we are.
It's the exact same thing. Anybody who's watching the stream, it's the exact same thing.
I have to say, John, we don't know who you're going to reveal as your number one, but Ger isn't the only one cheating, it turns out.
I just shaved a couple of days before November and then didn't shave again, to be honest.
Just quickly, two last notes on this. We want to see a clean shave, and we want to see a bit more confidence, a bit more flair. We're hinting at a handlebar. I want to see that coming off the screen next Friday. So
I take that feedback.
Yeah, I want to see it too.
I take that on the chin, on the hairy chin.
And then that leaves Eoin in first place. Great initial kind of breaches here. Great first outing. I'm liking the darker red tones. He stuck to the basics of
Thank you.
If he is cheating, not announcing it live on the programme, and also
it's key.
Showing up clean shaven. We had a comment in yesterday from Eoin saying the Eoin yourself. This Eoin was saying you Eoin. Looks like an extra off the Magnificent Seven. So, the graphics department here have been busy. I mean, leading the cavalry. We always like when a sneaky carryman hops up in the Western, an early settler out there in the US, Is he upsetting the peace? Is he restoring the peace? Who knows? But, he's probably want to know more about. So that's us for this morning. That's the initial ranking. And, it's a lot of intriguing offerings there. And just curious to see where this all goes.
Yeah, I have a feeling there's an arc at play here. Yours is a bit it's not that well groomed.
I know, just let it grow.
Yeah,
there's no grooming to be done here.
Come on, Joe. You're top of the rankings yourself. Fair play.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot. Joe Conroy on the line there to give us a bit of abuse, bit of stick, which is all fair enough. And by the way, if you want to get involved, Movember.ie, you don't have to look like clowns like us. You don't have to grow a moustache. You can actually go out and get some, do some exercise for the month and make a few donations and raise awareness. And it's all about men's mental health. And you can head along to Movember.ie and see exactly how it is that you can get involved. It is almost 9 minutes past 9. We have a live crappy quiz on the way. Will, Nathan and myself are going to get Nathan's thoughts on the game last night as well. But before all of that, we've a ton of NFL goodness coming your way this week at the return of OTB Club Gridiron. It'll have highlights from the snap, reports from the games, early bird tickets to events, and much more as well. You can sign up now, otbsports.com/Club Gridiron. Head along there, as people have been doing literally in their hundreds over the last couple of weeks, and you can sign up to our new newsletter. The Snap on OTB also back. It's brought to you in association with the Aer Lingus College Football Classic, Northwestern against Nebraska at the Aviva. Saturday, August 27th of next year. You can check out the website collegefootballireland.com for full details on all of that. During the break, you're going to see Ronan Mullen and Cian Fahey discussing the Jaguar season so far.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
He's a lion, he's a Grand Slam winner, he's Ireland's leading try scorer, and now you can hear him first, exclusively on the OTB Sports app.
One of my abiding memories is having my cut opened up again as I got hit by the trophy in coppers on the dance floor.
Join Brian O'Driscoll for the best insight and analysis this rugby season.
We haven't had the usual kind of grenades from Gats, that's gone, so we're creating them ourselves.
Get the jump on everyone else. Download the OTB Sports app and turn on notifications now.
What will sports stadiums and arenas look like in the future? Will we have virtual reality, holograms and other technological advancements adding to the matchday experience? Well, Croke Park Stadium Director Peter McKenna says we can actually look at the past as an indicator for what works and what doesn't.
Just thinking about this, say, well, we see stadiums in 100 years' time. Stadiums haven't changed that much in 2,000 years. If you go back to the Coliseum, an 80,000 venue on the outskirts of Rome, and the building still stands. That is an extraordinary sense of what stadiums haven't really evolved that much from that position. In many ways, some of the advances that they had in the Coliseum are not replicated even today. So that they're able to fill the Coliseum with water and have like sea battles and stuff. So the concept of everyone sitting in a seat and looking at an arena, that hasn't changed.
Sure. Hi, my name is Sheahan. I'm a director at Populous, and we specialise in the design of stadiums, arenas, convention centres, and basically anywhere where people love to be together. Whether it's a community football stadium or kind of a large international stadium, there is this sense of wanting to be together for the spectators who go there, and that linger time becomes quite important to maximise, utilise, because as the world becomes more digital, the offer you get when you get to the stadium has to be more and more unique.
Josh Allen is a very, very good defensive end and a very, very good outside linebacker who's been nullified a bit by his coaching staff this year because his coaching staff is not good. But they got a perfect game plan against this Bills offense. They sat in zone a lot, they rushed for a lot. They didn't give Josh Allen any opportunities to throw the ball deep downfield or throw the ball to the intermediate level. And what happens then is Josh Allen has to make quick decisions and throw underneath, which is not what he's particularly good at. And it also, but they were also able to do that because Taven Bryan had a huge game on the interior, Josh Allen had a huge game on the outside, so they were getting pressure with that four-man rush. And both of at least one of Allen's interceptions came from a disguised pass rush where they blitzed off the corner, off the slot, dropped Josh Allen back into space. He intercepted the ball from Josh Allen, the quarterback, and that's because he misread the coverage of what was happening. And they did a great job of being very patient defensively, of forcing the Bills to take the checkdowns, to take the shorter throws, and then strike when they had the opportunity, then show something different and change it up. And Josh Allen, the quarterback, was just confused throughout the game. The Bills failing, they needed to run the ball. They needed to commit to running the ball because that's the only way you can get the Jaguars out of that game plan that they had, and they didn't do it. So the Bills can go and reassess. They have solutions to the problems they showed. The Jaguars should take a lot of heart from that, even though Trevor Lawrence didn't have a good game, obviously, and the offense didn't do anything, and Trevor Lawrence actually got hurt during the game as well. But defensively, this unit got destroyed by the Houston Texans in week 1, and they did so by the Texans using the same 3 plays over and over and over again. And that is a complete night and day from what happened last week, where they were the ones dictating to the Bills' offense. They were the ones posing the threat, posing the problem. So they should feel really good about that aspect of it. But in general, of course, the Jaguars don't have much to feel good about. And in general, the Bills have a lot to feel good about. So this will probably end up being just a blip on the radar by the end of the year.
Car insurance is boring, but you don't have to be. Get Set Go is the kind of car insurance you can sort in a few minutes online, then bounce on with your day. Are you ready for Quick Start Insurance? Get a quote now at getsetgo.ie. MCL Insurance Services Ireland Limited, trading as getsetgo.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, proud supporters of Movember. Gentlemen, let's move.
All right, it's nearly 9:15. It's Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM. Nathan Murphy, good morning to you.
How's it going?
Has it been spoken about on air, the major event in your life, or is that we taking that out? Are we keeping that for non-broadcast purposes?
What?
Your milestone birthday.
Oh, yes.
Has it been mentioned on air? Or
no, it hasn't.
I don't think so. No. I'm fine with it though. I'm fine.
Nathan turned 40 last weekend. Everybody, congratulations, happy birthday.
I had no idea that you were anywhere near 40. To be honest with you, Nathan. So congratulations.
You thought he was 45. What?
Hey, yeah.
What did you get up to for it?
Oh, just quiet night in, as 40-year-olds do. Own.
So do you feel a bit different? Turning 40, is it? Are you like? Do you get? You're not one to get uptight about birthdays anyway, but 40 is biggie, like.
No, I've decided 60 is the one I'm concerned about.
Right.
I definitely think 60. There'll be a sense of
bending doom.
Crack's kind of gone out of it now.
The crack's gone out of it.
Life begins at 60.
I can't see that ever happening for you, I must say. I think by the time we get to 60, it'll be like, 80. I mean, don't even be thinking about 80. 60's not old.
Yeah. It's not old.
I'm in my mid-40s.
Is 60 middle age now?
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, happy birthday, and anybody who wants to flood messages into your timeline over the course of the day, it's late, but go for it either way.
It's very late.
Come here.
Late, but it's fine.
What was your overall view? The main sort of takeaways from the game last night are some people, and including Vinny Perth, who was with us a bit earlier on, talking about that it was a bit of a damn squib until Pepe got sent off, but the diversion comes where we start talking about whether Stephen Kenny should get a new contract or not. Your view on the performance last night overall?
Geez, I didn't think it was a damn squib at all. We were commentating on the game last night. Like, there wasn't chance after chance after chance, but I thought it was actually quite entertaining. There was a really good pace and a good tempo to the game. There didn't seem to be a huge amount between the two sides. I know you can point to Portugal resting 5 of their players who were on yellow cards, but even still, there's a lot of quality in that Portuguese side. And I think Ireland, when they had a chance to play, to get the ball and do the right thing, they did it. Clearly, they're still lacking a little bit in that final third, that they seem quite comfortable now playing it around at the back in midfield, but there's just that little bit of X factor missing when they get into the more dangerous parts of the pitch. But I think there's clear signs that the players are now fully bought in and fully understanding of what the management team want, and they're able to execute it out on the pitch. And there's been a lot of progress over the past 3-4 games, and now they're playing with confidence, because with everything that happened last year, with the COVID situation, with the constant defeats and the just not being able to buy a goal, understandably, I think the players were shell-shocked, and that was been reflected in some of the performances. But now it feels as though actually this team is a settled team. There's options in different parts of the pitch, but they're playing 3 at the back. They're playing a 3-4-3 in pretty much every game. So I don't think there's any great question anymore about Stephen Kenny's future. I think it's without doubt he will be offered a new contract. I think the crowd that was there last night are clearly behind what the team are doing. It seems that most of those who make these decisions in the FAI have been supportive of Stephen Kenny and the progress that they're making, and the feeling that he should be allowed to bring Ireland to Euro 2024, or at least attempt to qualify, that those people have been strengthened with what they've seen, and that those people who had issues and who were creating issues, well, Stephen Kenny's been able to make his way through them. The one disappointment from last night is that, depending on how seriously you take the Nations League, and as you know, I take it seriously, but some people don't, that there's going to be no big guns coming to Dublin. There's going to be no massive games for another 18 months, because the qualifiers don't start until March 2023 for Euro 2024. So next year, because of the World Cup and the different calendar, all there is a Nations League campaign. But again, that is important. You only have to look at Wales. Remember, we were in a Nations League group with Wales when all this started, and Wales are now in a playoff for the World Cup based on what they have done in the Nations League. But I can't imagine there's any questions anymore about Stephen Kenny's future. I think some of the football Ireland played last night, the difference, there was a moment, it was in the build-up for Danilo's yellow card when Ogbonna ran him down the right wing, where the ball came to Seamus Coleman, was knocked back to him, edge of the area, and you think, not that long ago, Seamus Coleman is putting his foot through that. We're up against Portugal, we're at home, there's about half an hour left, just get rid. Played a little ball to Jeff Hendrick about 4 yards in front of him, who just rolled it out to Matt Doherty. up it's played along the line, release out Bena. And this isn't revolutionary football. Like, this is just modern football. And I think what I wanted from Stephen Kenny, what I wanted to change in Irish football was that you saw football that replicated what you saw in the Premier League, that you saw on your television, rather than actually when you went to the Ireland, it was Stone Age stuff, a world apart from what every other side is trying to do in world football, and that it's entertaining. And I don't think anybody went home last night thinking, God, yes, you're frustrated we didn't win, but that was enjoyable. Like, that was a good, enjoyable 90 minutes of football. Yes, you want to win. And there's extremes clearly still on the debate, but I think 90% of people who are in the middle and who are reasonable about this would accept that, you know, a corner has been turned results-wise, and the progress is clear to see, and Stephen Kenny will get that new contract.
Yeah, seems like that'll happen. Righto, time to get into your specialist topic. Enough of this football stuff. Time for the crappy quiz. Chris Waddle.
Oh, you're kidding me. September.
Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me? Is that right? I know, it's not right.
Anybody else?
Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz. What is going on here?
Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on Irish radio. It's the scintillating, it's the stupefying, it is the splendido crappy quiz. Every Friday we pit three of team off the ball up against each other in a no-holds-barred quiz of sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome today's contestants. Our first contestant today has got the cheese board ready, the Cabernet Sauvignon uncorked, and the kids sent off to the childminders not to be seen again until Sunday. It's All Blacks weekend, and he's not going to stop sipping on that red until the boys get the job done tomorrow night. Give it up for the Athlone Bone, Adrian. Who's your daddy, Barry?
That's nothing I'd love more, but I'm actually going to the match, so there won't be any wine or cheese boards, to be honest. It'll be pints all the way.
Nice. No wine at the Aviva Stadium for you?
I don't really like to have wine when I'm out and about like that.
Right.
Sort of lose the run of yourself a bit on, you know yourself.
On Twitter?
You know the feeling.
Could be posting tweets.
Well, if I'm saying tomorrow that this is possibly the best team that we've ever seen, I'll be alright. Even though I might be sort of misquoted for years to come, I'll be happy with that.
Our next contestant today is waltzing back into the quiz like Stone Cold Steve Austin with 2 cans of beer. He's been running laps, skipping rope and punching meat in his preparation for his comeback, ready to bring a whole world of trivia pain to your life. It's Nathan Nate Dog Murphy.
He's been what?
The what now?
Welcome back to the quiz, Nathan.
Thank you. I've watched on, and well, some of it was embarrassing. Last week, Eoin, I never thought you would be missed, of all people who would be missed. But dear God, it turns out they are reasonable sized shoes to fill.
Wow. Shots fired.
That is the nicest thing anybody's ever said about me. Our last contestant today has been ditched by Shane Lowry's grandmother as Offaly's greatest sports person after getting hammered by Phil the Power Egan in last week's quiz. From the pride of Offaly to the shame of the Midlands, it's Will Walk and Roll O'Callaghan.
Morning, lads. Yeah, beaten by Phil by 1 point last week. A real hammering, all right. I just hope there's no more questions about American rounders this week. There were far too many baseball questions last week. And I think this is my 3rd week in a row in this programme. And each time we've had the Atlanta Braves come up. So I'll be happy if in 15 minutes' time the Atlanta Braves are not a question at some point in this quiz.
Is your Twitter bio under threat?
Yeah, seriously under threat. But look, in fairness, once a champion, always a champion. I can always just leave it there for a while. Like, I don't think if you... lose on a particular week, you're not a crappy quiz champion. I think that's there forevermore.
It's true. Nobody can take it away from you that you won a crappy quiz that wasn't contested by Nathan or Phil. Anyway, as ever, the format is a classic crappy quiz with a series of questions on a range of themes. It's on to the slip and slide of trivia after that, which is the rapid fire round. You can, as ever, podcast the crappy quiz on the OTB Sports app. And if you're watching on YouTube, we'd love if you gave us a thumbs up. Please send any questions you have via postcard to Crappy Quiz Quizmaster, Off the Ball Towers, Marconi House, Diggs Lane, Dublin 2. Round 1 is the boring questions round, never multiple choice. Adrian, question 1 for you. Can you name any player not called Ronaldo or Messi to have won the Ballon d'Or at least 3 times?
Gonna say... there's 2 names in my head, Eoin. Could I throw them out there?
You may as well reel through the answers here. That's a mode of...
Ronaldinho being one.
And who's the other one?
Pavel Nedved.
It's Nedved versus Ronaldinho in your head, is it?
Whoa. I haven't given any answer.
Who pressed that button?
Whoa. Hang about. I mean, I now know I need to go for someone else, but like, you know.
Give us a final answer here.
Do I need to go for someone else?
What's your final answer?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it's not Pavel Nedved because let's assume that buzzer was for that. Do I need to go in another direction? I'm going to go for Zinedine Zidane.
No, you were wrong with all three of them. There's three people.
Nedved was a bizarre answer, wasn't it?
Yeah,
he is a former winner, Nathan.
He did win it once. Platini, Cruyff and Van Basten are the three who've won it 3 times, other than Messi and
Jojo tried to help me out there, even though he's not even on sound this morning.
Nathan, question 1 for you. Which 2 clubs jointly hold the record for the most relegations from the Premier League with 5 each? One club is currently in the Premier League, one club is not.
Watford?
No, we can give the buzzer there straight away. That's incorrect. West Brom and Norwich are the 2 teams that have been relegated 5 times. Will, question 1 for you. If Stephen Kenny was the Ireland manager for Ronaldo's most recent appearance in Dublin, who was the Ireland manager the last time the national side faced Lionel Messi?
That's a
Giovanni Trapattoni?
Correct.
That's a very easy
Exactly,
question.
and even if you didn't know the answer, you've only got like 2 or 3 options to choose from.
That was like Messi's only played against Ireland once.
Like, look at the range of
the first game at the Aviva Stadium.
But like
narrow answers that I had. That's
for me, it could have been Stan, it could have been Martin O'Neill.
The Aviva Stadium wasn't built when Stan was there.
Not everybody remembers that it's the first game at the Aviva Stadium.
Everybody remembers it's the first game at the Aviva Stadium.
Okay, well, I didn't remember it was the first game at the Aviva Stadium.
It's a sort of bullshit. You wouldn't have gone under my watch, Nathan. You're giving out about it earlier on, I can tell you that.
I apologise, Adrian.
Round 2, Will is 1-0 up. Is the scoreless draw. I just didn't get a ticket. I wasn't living in Dublin at the time. I didn't go to that match.
It's a joke, Owen. You do know that. You know it yourself anyway.
Round 2 is the scoreless draw.
Come on, you've seen the picture of Kilban going straight through him.
After Portugal joined a long list of teams that Ireland have hammered 0-0, this round will test your knowledge on all the other teams that have fallen victim to one of the Republic of Ireland's favourite scorelines. Adrian, can you name the last team Ireland drew 0-0 with at a major tournament?
Is it Sweden?
It is not Sweden. You forgot Wes Hoolahan scored a goal that day. It was 1-0. Anyone?
Norway?
Norway, bang on, yeah. USA 94.
It was Scandinavian, all right, yeah.
Nathan, question 2 for you. Richard Dunn's heroic performance in Ireland's 0-0 draw in Moscow was the highlight of Ireland's September 2011 international window. It was just one of 2 0-0 draws in that window. Who else did they play out a scoreless draw with?
It was qualification for 2012, was it? All right.
Yeah. Who are you thinking?
I'm thinking Slovakia, but I just don't remember that being a scoreless draw.
Give us a cycle, Nathan. Come on. It's been a couple of weeks since we've had a cycle.
Just trying to think through the other teams that were in that group. That was when we beat Estonia, was it? In the playoff. There's a bit of knowledge for you, Adrian. But
just a bit.
Does the playoff count?
Who are you going for?
Is it during that entire campaign?
What?
No clues now, no clues.
It was the same window as done in Moscow. There was another 0-0 draw in that week. Who did they draw 0-0 with?
Okay, so it wasn't Estonia. Say Slovakia.
Correct.
Oof.
It was Slovakia.
Slovakia. Disgrace.
Will, question 2 for you. The final game of the Steve Staunton era was a 1-1 draw with Cyprus, but his second last result was a creditable scoreless draw against which European superpower?
That was 2006.
A lot of silent pondering going on this morning on the...
What was the question again?
The question again is...
Yes.
What was the penultimate game of Steve Staunton's reign? It was a scoreless draw against a European superpower. Which country?
Which worries me slightly that it was possibly a friendly as opposed to a qualifier, because I'm trying to think of the qualifier campaign that they played in. Sweden?
It was not. Anyone remember?
Wales?
No.
Germany?
Yes, indeed. A 0-0 draw in that. So
I thought we were being counter-ironic with your European superpower there.
No, it was that would
No trick questions in the crappy quiz.
Yeah, we're playing, as you can, everybody at home can tell, but the amount of fun we're having here, we're playing at a very straight edge this morning. It is Nathan 1, Will 1, Adrian 0. Round 3 is the Ireland versus the All Blacks round. The All Blacks back in town and back on the pints, and this round will test your knowledge on a storied history between Ireland and the New Zealand rugby team. Adrian, in which city did the 60-0 demolition of Ireland by the All Blacks take place in 2012? Oh, that's a big sigh. That is a big sigh. It suggests to me that it's in there somewhere, but it's not close to the surface.
The options are...
Thank you.
It's not going
Fill the void of silence, please.
It's not going to be Auckland.
It is not going to be Auckland, okay. What is it going to be?
It's going to be, most likely, but not my answer yet, Wellington.
Okay, so, and how are you going to arrive at your final answer?
Well, they tend to play a lot more games at the Cake Tin, so I'm leaning that way.
Okay.
I've Dunedin as a live option, and I've Christchurch as a live option.
Great, now give us your final answer.
Can you name anywhere else in New Zealand?
He's named every
Otago.
Adrian lived there, did you know that?
I'm going to go with Wellington.
It's not Wellington. It's Hamilton.
Oh, Hamilton!
Jesus.
Hamilton.
Didn't even cycle through it. Did you even know that there was a place called Hamilton?
Yeah, it's like just south of Auckland, in fact, yeah.
Damn it. Nathan, in what year other than 2019 did Ireland and New Zealand meet at a Rugby World Cup?
It's the Gary Halpin game, isn't it?
Like, again, anyway, it's much more straight, for the options are just more finite than name a random city in New Zealand.
There's a finite amount of cities.
We've already established that there's about 10 options there, whereas this is like, narrow it down.
What year was that?
Gonna need a bit of pace in the thinking here. 95, correct.
Is that what he said?
He did, yeah.
Yes. The Wi-Fi kind of broke up there. I thought he said 99.
He said 95.
No,
and
95.
Will, to open up a 2-point gap on Adrian, who scored New Zealand's final try and their last gasp win against Ireland in Dublin in 2013?
Ryan Crotty.
Oh, sure, that's an absolute gimme. Is it a gimme? Keeps getting
the Will Callahan loving is a disgrace.
By a distance.
Are you kidding me? Ryan Crotty has dined out on that. That's been Ryan Crotty's career.
Well, you've got to say that was a very tough question, because it's all about the kick at the end and nobody actually remembers who actually scored the try before the kick.
Oh, they do.
Well done, Will. That was a really tough question and you nailed it.
Cheers on.
Remembering when Ireland played the All Blacks at the World Cup and remembering where they got their worst ever hammering in the history of Irish sport are probably also right up there as well.
Hamilton,
Adrian.
as you said yourself. Did anybody know that's a city?
I was just being ironic. Round 4 is the Fun Free Magic number round. Contestants get 3 points to get the number exactly right. Yeah.
Where's the only enjoyable round in the entire quiz gone?
I didn't do it this week.
It got very confusing last week, lads. I won't lie to you.
What? We'll do it every second week, every other week. Keeps it fresh.
He was at the game last night and he had a few pints. He didn't have time to do it.
That new round is the easiest one to write. In fact, I
actually were you in the prawn sandwich brigade last night?
No.
He was in Let's Have a Lot of Pints brigade last night.
There was no prawn sandwiches where I was sitting. Round 4.
Just before it comes up, I don't have a pen to hand, so blank page on. I have blank page here.
I'm putting it on my phone.
Grant, when we know how this works, contestants gets 3 points for getting the number exactly right. If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The second closest gets 1 point. And I'm going to say that we can only accept the answer that's typed up on your laptop or written on your paper. So if you don't mind, give us the following number. The number of times Ireland have avoided defeat against New Zealand in a rugby test match, plus the number of goals the Republic of Ireland have scored in this World Cup qualification campaign, plus the number in the FIFA World Rankings that the Republic of Ireland occupies, plus the number of Football All-Irelands won by Down. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beads. So, how many times have Ireland not lost to New Zealand when they've played them in rugby? How many goals have Ireland scored in this World Cup qualification campaign? Where are Ireland in the world rankings? Need that number. And then finally the number of Football All-Irelands won by Down. Add them all up. Lucky again. Adrian is finished. Nathan, we'll go to you first.
62.
Will?
Yeah, I have 62 written as well.
62. Adrian?
48.
No, it's not. It's 67. So the two boys get
Point each.
a point each. So yeah, it's 3-3-0 after that. Let's go through them. Ireland have avoided defeat against New Zealand on 3 occasions. The 2 wins and then a draw in 1973. Ireland have scored 8 goals in this World Cup qualification campaign. Ireland are 51st in the world rankings.
That's
and
good.
Down have won the All-Ireland 5 times, which brings your total to 67. And Adrian, you're tailing behind
Did either of these clowns have those numbers actually correct? It sounds like they didn't. Nathan?
Well, I had the first one and the last one.
Quick tiebreaker.
Not the competition.
Quick tiebreaker to decide who goes first. Nathan, how many Irish caps does Paul McShane have?
McShane, I would say he has about 42.
42. Will?
35.
Will goes first. It's 33.
God, fair play to you, Will. I have to say, hats off. You didn't go for the old.
You didn't go for the higher or lower.
Fair play.
Right, we are on to the final. Our winner tonight will be decided.
McShane was robbed, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. In the round that separates the men from the boys, the Shane Duffys from the Shane McMahons. It's no team in particular, ridiculously easy rapid fire round. The score you get in this round will be added to your score from the previous round. 40 seconds for everyone to answer from the same set of questions. So we start with Will, then on to Nathan, then on to Adrian. If you get a question correct, I keep asking you questions until you get one wrong. And we move on to the next person, and your incorrect answer will also mean the deduction of a point if you get one wrong. So, Will O'Callaghan, going for 2 wins in 3 weeks. Are you ready?
Yep, go for it.
40 seconds starts now. What club does Henrik Mkhitaryan play for?
Roma.
Correct. Who is the Celtic manager?
Ange Postecoglou.
Correct. Who are the reigning senior men's football All-Ireland champions?
Tyrone.
No, club.
Oh, sorry. Corofin.
Correct. What position are Arsenal in the Premier League?
8th.
5th. Which league are Bradford City currently in, Nathan?
League 1.
League 2. What team has Joe Schmidt agreed to coach?
Blues.
Correct. In what year did Chris Froome last win the Tour de France?
2018.
17. Who won the Open this year, Will?
Oh, God. Matsuyama?
Colin Arakawa. Which NBA team does Luka Doncic play for, Nathan, to tie this thing up?
Oh, wow.
Oof.
Rapid fire, Nathan. Quick. Doncic plays for who?
He's not even sure what sport you're talking about here.
Dog, it has to be quick fire.
I'm going to go for the Bulls. I know it's not the Bulls.
Not the Bulls, no. So that leaves you with...
Does he play for?
He plays for Dallas Mavericks.
Atlanta Braves, no?
The Atlanta Braves. Will O'Callaghan, you get to 4 points. Nathan, you're back to 1. Actually, it was pretty comprehensive in the end with the negative point. So, Will O'Callaghan, you're back.
I've redeemed myself, Eoin, yeah. 2 out of 3 ain't
Those
bad.
questions to start were ridiculous. And also, can I ask, how did I end up having to go first in the tiebreaker?
Because that's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's you first.
That changed the entire dynamic.
It did. It's just the way it is. That's what happens when you're at the top. People just want to knock you down.
It's a load of
Use it as inspiration for next week, Nathan.
Exactly.
To be fair, I will say it was a poor quiz from Nathan. Not the fact that he didn't win, but more just we didn't get enough cyclist shite out of him. Normally you get much more than that.
Well, congratulations, Will O'Callaghan. Have a great weekend. Thank you for being with us here on the Crappy Quiz. Nathan, happy belated birthday. Adrian, thank you for taking part again. Lovely moustache. OTB AM is with Gillette, proud sponsors of Movember. Gentlemen, let's mow. We are leaving you with Emma Carroll of the COYGIG podcast, previewing women's football weekend and conclusion of the domestic title race. You'll also hear more after that from Stewie Byrne at the Aviva last night.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Okay, so the Women's Super League is back this weekend once again for another round of fixtures. It's the second round after the international break. And then we've also got the conclusion to the Women's National League here in Ireland. To talk through a pretty busy weekend of football, Emma Carroll, our own Emma Carroll, is here. How are you getting on?
Good. Strange being on this side of the camera, to be honest.
Emma usually visual mixes outside, essentially produces from the box here. You're also involved in the COYGIG pod, which is, of course, our new Irish football show, our Irish women's football show. Katie McCabe was the guest last week. We're going to see her in action this Saturday, 1:30, away to Spurs, the North London derby. This is a pretty tasty fixture, to say the least, mainly because we've all become, I guess, a little bit obsessed with this Arsenal team this season via Katie McCabe, but also because Spurs are pretty good as well.
Yeah, Arsenal obviously unbeaten and flying it so far this season. But yeah, Spurs have made a real turnaround this season compared to where they were last season. They really struggled and had a bit of a battle on their hands last season, but they're sitting in third now. So North London derby, and when you've got first against third, it's definitely going to make it a little bit more spicier, I think.
What has Spurs done differently this season?
Well, they brought in Rihanna Skinner, who's new manager, so she's definitely put more organisation into the team. They didn't seem to have a real identity last season. Alex Morgan was obviously a massive signing for them last season, but we didn't get to see much of her, so I suppose that signing probably was maybe brought in to try get them a few goals and build confidence last season, but that didn't really happen. But this season they're looking good. They're climbing the table.
Was the Morgan signing a bit of a headline grabbing one rather than one that would have legitimately given them sustainable success over a period of time?
Yeah, it was definitely that, and it was one of those last season where we saw a lot of the US stars coming in. I think COVID and stuff and their league being cancelled over there led to a lot of that, and then obviously Alex Morgan had just come back from having a baby, so I think from her point of view it was probably about getting a bit of fitness, some training in, and a little bit of game time back under her belt before moving back over. And then from Spurs, you're in the WSL and a big signing, and a bit like kind of Gareth Bale, I suppose, elevate you and gather headlines on social media.
So this is obviously then going to be a rivalry that you look at the investment that both of these teams have made over the last couple of years in particular. This rivalry is not going anywhere. This is not a one-off Arsenal Spurs kind of I guess playing it out at the top of the table. This is very much two clubs where you could see there being a few years in this where of course Chelsea and Manchester City will be expected to be contending year after year, but Arsenal and Spurs, Arsenal very much so are going to be in contention most years you'd suspect as well.
Yeah, Arsenal are definitely pushing it, and they're definitely a higher quality, and they're definitely battling it out with the likes of Chelsea and City for titles and Champions League spots. I suppose in the men's game, the North London derby is a massive thing. In the women's game, we haven't really seen that so much. But just before COVID hit, we seen those record attendances at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as well for the women's North London derby. So there's definitely, I suppose, something building here. It's slow, but I suppose Spurs are kind of still in their infancy of turning professionals. So yeah, we're going to see the growth there, I think, definitely.
Arsenal then, 6 games played, 6 wins, 23 goals scored, 2 goals conceded. Is the magnitude of what they've done this season surprising?
Yes and no. Like, they have players that none of us would be surprised that they're getting these results, and they made the signings like Nikita Paris, Tobin Heath, Mana Inabuchi. So really good attacking signings, but also very clever signings in someone like Manham in the midfield, and she's just allowed Kim Little to kind of move up further to the field. And as Jonas Eideveld, her manager has been saying, he just wants Kim Little to shoot, and she's doing that and she's scoring. So since retiring and having that protection behind her, she's definitely almost like a new player this season for them. And Katie McCabe has just been improving the last couple of seasons, and I suppose we're seeing her also further up the field in some stages, which is a surprise when you've got the likes of Tobin Heath after being signed. You think, okay, the battle for the attack is on. So you kind of really felt, all right, well, she's probably going to be left in that left back position, but we haven't seen that. We've seen her left forward, right wing forward as well during certain games. So these players are really stepping up a level, and although those big signings are coming in, you've got players like Beth Mead, who is probably the player of the season so far. She missed out on the Euros with the England squad, and it seemed to just make her a bit angry and up her levels over the summer. She's just incredible with the amount of goals and assists that she has so far this season. So yeah, Arsenal are definitely the one to beat so far this season.
Where do you think, when things settle down a little bit, maybe they are... Okay, so Katie McCabe didn't score last weekend, which is an absolute disaster from her perspective. When things settle down, maybe on her form, and maybe things level out as the season develops, do you think it's left back that she is going to settle in?
If you start getting Tobin Heath, Miedema, Nikita Paris, Beth Mead, Imabuchi all into the team, then for us to continue to want to see McCabe play, then left back is probably the position where there's a bit of space there, even though she has that battle with Steph Catley to keep that position. But
was Catley signed to replace her?
I think we all thought that last season when she came in. It definitely seemed that way, or maybe it was just an Irish point of view. We're worried when somebody gets signed in an Irish player's position. Yeah, you're like, oh, this is coming in to replace me. But I think Catley kind of picked up an injury quite early on last season, so McCabe managed to keep her spot and prove herself, because she ended up being Arsenal's player of the season last season, so that just goes to show. And her manager is obviously putting a lot of trust in her. He's allowing her to play further forward. He's even putting her, like when he's making substitutions and putting Catley on, he's not necessarily taking McCabe off, he's moving her to the right wing and stuff. So it's interesting to see the different positions that she's been playing in, and the more she plays, the better for Ireland. And if she gets into those attacking positions, then even better again, because maybe it might push Pow to actually put her a bit further forward, which is something we kind of seen in the last game against Finland a little bit.
Yeah, so you think that would be a positive development, you think that Pow maybe still needs convincing to put McCabe in an advanced position?
Yeah, probably, I think so. Well, that's how it would seem if she keeps putting her left back, but I suppose when you look at the international setup, is we don't probably have many options in the left back position, so you're almost trying to play Katie everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of want two Katies to be left back and a left kind of forward player as well. So
I guess the counter-attacking game that we saw against Finland in particular in the second half was just like, wow, there's acres of space in front of McCabe here. Going from left back isn't exactly the worst position for her to be in. So that's at 1:30 on Saturday. The rest of the games are on Sunday.
Yep.
So Everton United is the early game at 12:30. 2 o'clock games are Birmingham City against Aston Villa. It's like derby weekend. Brighton against Leicester at 2 o'clock. West Ham against Reading at 3 o'clock. And we just want to touch on the next 3 o'clock game here, which is Manchester City against Chelsea. This is a heavyweight, head to head, no question about it, but it probably should be reflected more on the table. Manchester City have been really disappointing this season.
Yeah, any other season, this is kind of built up to probably be nearly your title decider in a way. They're always good games. They always kind of go straight to the death as well. We've seen last minute equalisers and winners as well in these fixtures over the last few seasons. But Man City haven't had a great start to the season. But I suppose they have had an awful lot of injuries, like Lucy Braun, Steph Houghton, Kira Walsh, to name but a few, and they're big hitters. So when you're missing the likes of those players and that experience, then you can kind of give them a little bit of leeway. But when you look at their actual starting 11s in some of those games, you think some of the teams that they came up against, they probably still should have been doing better and going the net results. Last weekend we seen them probably back to their best a little bit. They beat Leicester 4-1. Now Leicester are bottom of the table, so maybe you can't read too much into it, but they had the likes of Kira Walsh back in the midfield, which gives them a lot of solidity there, protecting the back four, because their back four is a bit of a mixed match of players at the moment. There's no real centre backs or right backs in that team at the moment. So having that really will hopefully give them a bit of confidence. But when you're coming up against a Chelsea team with forwards like Sam Kerr, Kirby, Harda has had a little niggle, so I'm not too sure if she'll be ready for the weekend. But even if she's not ready, you've still got Jessie Fleming, who has come into her own over the last couple of weeks. Canadian Olympian. She scored the winner against Aston Villa there on Saturday, and again in the Champions League during the week. So she's definitely kind of one to watch. And it just goes to show the depth that they have. That's even going without saying the likes of Bet England as well in the forward line. So when you've that attack coming up, this City defence, you would think that it's only going to go one way, but between City and Chelsea, you just never know. But if Chelsea play anything like the way they did in the Champions League during the week, then hopefully they're beginning to find their top gear again.
Right. Okay. So you've got Beth England, Jessie Fleming. Both started obviously last weekend against Villa in the game you mentioned. You got Kirby and Kerr coming off the bench. Yeah. Not all four of them can start, or can they?
No, they probably won't start. No, they probably won't all start together. Beth England, we've seen her being on the bench a lot, but coming off and scoring goals and scoring for England as well. So she's starting to find form. 2 seasons ago, she was the top goal scorer in the WSL, player of the season as well. So it just goes to show, when you've got Kirby, Kerr and Harder, and then the likes of Fleming and England coming in behind them, then it's just such an exciting attack to watch.
7-0 was the scoreline against Servette the other night in the Champions League. Yep. Is there a slight concern, are they like a little bit like Pep Guardiola's Manchester City, where you're kind of obviously clutching at straws and you're looking for a weakness, but they do tend to rack up insane stats, like 76% possession against Villa last weekend, 16 shots, 1-0. The sense that they should be beating teams by a bigger margin but aren't?
The Villa game, you definitely would have thought so. They probably didn't put in their best performance. It wasn't really the Chelsea we've seen. But then when
they won 7-0
about it on the COYGIG podcast on Tuesday, and then they go and put in that Champions League performance. So it was like, actually, no, we're still here. Aston Villa probably put in just a really good defensive performance as well. In fairness to them, they done a lot of work to keep them at bay, and Chelsea done that without starting the likes of your Kirby Harders. So
yeah, well, they had less possession against Servette, and then they're scoring 6 more goals against Servette. So really, possession is not 9/10 of the law, as they say. So let's move on and quickly wrap up through some of the other games this weekend. Everton versus United is fascinating, not least because of Everton's new manager.
Yeah, Everton have, when we talk about City's poor performance at the start of the season, Everton has even been lower than that, and their goal at the start of the season definitely would have been to push for that Champions League spot. They've sacked their manager, Willie Cork, even after making 8 or 9 signings in the window in the summer, so you're probably thinking after 5 games maybe it's a bit too soon. That team hasn't fully bedded in, but Everton has said no, we're going for a new manager. They've gone for Jean-Luc Vasseur, the ex-Lyon manager, who has pretty much won everything there is. Champions League, the French league title. Lyon, as we know, have dominated Europe for years and years, and one season where PSG kind of pipped him, he was shown the door, which was last season. So he's in at Everton now. Everton are obviously putting a lot of backing into their women's team if this is the route they're taking. So it will probably be a bit of a project, but it'll be interesting to see what happens there, because when you're bringing in a winner like that, then there's only one way you can be thinking.
This is a coup for Everton.
I would think so, and it's exciting to see that. Willie Cork put in a lot of effort to get Everton back up the table to where they were, so maybe they were a bit harsh to let him go early, but maybe it's just shining a light on how much the WSL is growing. If they're starting to take, we see this in the men's game all the time, the likes of Aston Villa and Norwich sacking their manager after a couple of games in a season. To see this happening in the WSL is probably a bit of a new thing. To see this kind of knee-jerk reaction, so it's showing that they're mean business, and now there's more pressure on the players and the managers.
Yeah, I guess it probably shows the value that these teams place on those European spots, because Everton are third from bottom, but still very much in the hunt. It's United, who they play this weekend, are in 5th, and there's only a 5-point gap between them. Granted, we're only 6 games into the season, but those patterns haven't exactly set in just yet, so you can afford to sack your manager and think you can have a significant change on the destination of your campaign.
Yeah, they've made the decision early, I suppose, to kind of in the hope that will happen. Manchester United are the same, similar to Everton. They would be hoping that they would be pushing for that 3rd spot, but when you look at the league, and Spurs and Brighton in particular are actually probably the little bits of the shock so far. Surprises this season. They're flying it and really putting the pressure on the likes of Manchester United and Everton to prove themselves.
So Everton versus United, as I say, is 12:30 kick-off on Sunday. Man City against Chelsea is 3 o'clock on Sunday, and then Spurs against Arsenal is the 1:30 game on Saturday. So those are the 3 big games this weekend in the WSL. Just want to touch on the Women's National League here before we wrap up. It is match day 27. It is the final day of the season. Peamount obviously drew 0-0 with UCD last Saturday, 0-0 scoreline, which scuppered their title celebrations. There's a 2-point gap between them now and Shells. Shells are at home to Wexford Youths. Peamount are at home to Galway. Slight bit of pressure, to say the least, on Peamount to make sure they do get the job done this weekend.
Yeah, surprisingly, Karen Duggan didn't really want to talk about it on the podcast last week. They would have been probably hoping that they would have got the job done last week, so they go into the final game of the season now 2 points clear of Shells, but Shelbourne probably have the tougher fixture of the two as well. Although they are at home, they're playing Wexford Youth, so they're in their 3rd place, so a win for Shells is a must, and then I suppose wait and hope for what happens between Peamount and Galway. You would expect Peamount to do the business over Galway and take that title home again.
Yeah, they need to win, and Peamount needs to lose, really, if we're talking realistically here.
Right. That's on TG Carroll as well, we should say, so you can see where the title goes live on TV, which is good.
Nice one. That's live at 7:30 on Saturday this weekend, so pretty big weekend of football both here and across the water. Emma Carroll, great stuff. Thanks a million.
Welcome to the Aviva Stadium. It's just finished. Republic of Ireland 0, Portugal 0. Stewie Byrne was in co-commentary. That was a lively game. I'm surprised it finished 0-0. That really opened up.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, plenty. Well, not plenty of chances, but there certainly were opportunities for both Portugal and ourselves. The whole hype around Cristiano Ronaldo didn't seem to be justified until the very end. Literally, the last second of the game, it won nothing. And if you think at 36 years of age, he would have been tired. He was able to produce, a little moment of magic from a James McLean mistake just here underneath our noses, and he dribbled all the way right up into the front post of Bazunu, let one go. Keeper was up to the challenge, and you're kind of gasping for breath. But that was pretty much the pinnacle of what he produced in the game.
Jeez, I don't know. I thought he was involved a lot more than usual. He first half, he beat 2 inside the penalty area and caused a bit of trouble. He had the shot from left edge of the penalty area, which just fell wide. He had the header, and then he was almost hit by he pitching trying to jump on him, as tends to be his lot in life. I thought he was pretty involved, Ronaldo, in fairness to him.
To be fair, in the overall, it's probably the first time in a while where I've seen Ronaldo more involved in the build-up play, dropping in deep, and his build-up play was good. He kept possession, but I suppose I'm sort of been given a little bit more credit to Seamus Coleman in the fact that the opportunities that Ronaldo had in the game, Coleman, a couple of 1v1s, he was able to match him, and there was that opportunity in the first half, halfway through the first half, where it looked like Ronaldo was banging it into the corner, into the goal with a free shot, and just Coleman just came out of nowhere.
Where did he come from?
I don't know.
It was an unbelievable block.
Yeah, we never got an opportunity to see it in the replay on the screen. It was the one thing, probably the one replay we haven't seen. I'd be dying to see it again. We came out of nowhere, and it was fantastic. But the overall performance from Ireland is just another progressive step in the right direction. This time against really, really world-class opposition. They weren't fantastic, Portugal, not by any stretch of the means, but Ireland had to deal with the whole hype of the game. Portugal coming to town, Ronaldo coming to town, the full capacity stadium back. There's been a lot of focus on. There's a lot of been a lot of debate, I suppose, on the whole Stephen Kenny thing. Should he stay? Should he go? I think tonight, to be quite honest with you, has gone a long way to him staying, and I wouldn't be at all surprised now if that could be the final nail in a deal that's going to be extended in the summer.
So, what did you like about Ireland then?
This ability bravery for us to play in difficult situations. Our possession-based game is improving all the time. We are less and less inclined now just to lump needless balls forward. That's a thing of the past now. And if something is going forward, it's calculated. It's you're trying to drive a ball into either the chest of somebody or just put it into his feet. Shane Duffy. We spoke about Shane Duffy in the last couple of games. His transition has epitomised our transition. The fact that Shane Duffy is now more than comfortable to receive the ball off Bazunu in his own box, pass it around. He's stepping forward into the game, trying to create opportunities. He done a little Cruyff turn.
Don't ever do it again, Shane. Don't ever do it again.
Yeah.
No, you're right though. He's a man reborn. I didn't know I didn't know he had that ceiling on the ball.
Yeah, I mean, look, it shows you, Joe, what confidence can do positively or negatively to a player. He was obviously in a very, very bad place last year. The club football wasn't going well for him, and he was just getting frustrated. International football wasn't. It was difficult internationally as well, but as soon as and Stephen's a very good manager for not being overly negative with a player and building a player up and getting them back on their feet and giving them the courage to be able to go and do things, and giving them the courage to be able to go and do things that they thought they probably just can't do. And he probably thought as a player he can't do this. There are certain things I can do and certain things I can't do.
Well, if you think to Stephen Kenny's very first game, he was very jittery on the ball and he stopped doing what Kenny wanted him to do. I vividly remember James McCarthy saying, "You're meant to step into the space," but he had lost it the first few times he touched it. And I remember thinking, this could be tricky for Duffy. And actually, fast forward 2 years, 18 months, and he's reveling in it. By the way, just it's the joy of being at a game. I meant to say it to you as well. Do you remember Ronaldo shot from the edge of the area, the left-hand side of the
In
box.
the corner into the far side.
Yeah.
The far corner.
So again, your eyes kind of drawn to him when you're watching the game. So he turned to Rafael Leão and all that pace when Portuguese goalkeeper had, and he just gestured with his hand and he said, "Just come towards me." Yeah. Okay, and I was thinking, we'll see how this plays out. Or what does he mean there? So the play develops, and as the ball is about to be played into midfield, Leão makes a run from outside to in. Just what Ronaldo was calling for, as in come towards me. Yeah. And he takes away Coleman and he distracts, must have been Duffy. Yeah. And Ronaldo runs outside, takes the ball and gets the one-on-one he wants. And, almost scores this amazing goal. And you just got a glimpse of the intelligence almost off the ball that you're not seeing. It's kind of this amazing moment. But to Leo's credit, totally got what Ronaldo wanted and timed it brilliantly. So you saw with Portugal moments which capture just what brilliant players they all are. That's what you're up against from an Irish perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it's been spoken about, at nausea, to be quite honest with you, Ronaldo's brilliance, but probably what people don't tend to mention is why is he always in the right place at the right time? And he's in the right place at the right time because he's of experience, because of timing, that ability to play to his strengths, and it's all calculated. It's not by accident, and it's a very good point that you brought up. And when I looked at that opportunity again, I thought he did everything right. I'm waiting for that to hit the far corner. I'm going, he's done it. He's come out now, he's done it, and he's just literally overcooked it. Didn't get enough curl on it, but he's it's at the age he's at, and that ability he has. But what let's kind of give credit to Seamus Coleman, because if I was marking Ronaldo, or if I was coaching anybody who was marking Ronaldo, I'd just say to them, go and get in his face. Put it up to him. Don't be overly aggressive with him. Yeah. He's only a human. And when you get the opportunity, put him on the ground. And that's what we did. And you could see that it didn't always go well for him tonight. There was times where he was a little bit petulant, frustrated, and I think the energy and the aggressiveness of how we played tonight was perfect.
He's always going to get opportunities, and that moment I described is just to highlight the genius. Like, he planned the whole thing from several moves back. This is what you're dealing with. This is the genius of the man. And also, if he says to Leão, "You do this," Leau's doing it.
When you've got that clout, you can certainly move things around. And in that Portuguese team, who's gonna disagree with him? But
and it worked. I mean, he got himself a 1-on-1. He almost scored. So you can see, well, if he tells me to do this, if he sensed it was the right thing to do, I'll do it. To bring it back to Ireland then, because we're not too worried about Portugal. First 15-20 minutes, you would have felt Portugal were lively and on top and looked dangerous. How did Ireland, do you feel, wrestle a degree of control back at times in that game?
I think a couple of things. I thought it took us a while to maybe get used to the movement, especially of that Portuguese front six. Yeah. Josh Cullen spent probably 25-30 minutes of the first half shutting down Bruno Fernandes, which was key, really, really important.
He doesn't do it, Cullen, with these dramatic tackles. No. You wouldn't really pick out a moment where he
gets on with his business, knows what he needs to do, and I think it's a side of his game that we don't fully appreciate yet. I would appreciate as a midfielder, because not only is he being asked to shut down Bruno Fernandes, but he's our link man. He's got to get on the ball, get himself in the position to get on the ball and get us playing once we win it back.
And he rarely gives it away. He's very, very good in the ball.
And then as the game went on, he was quite enough possession-wise for us in the first 25 minutes. But once he got a foothold in the game, once he shut down Fernandes ultimately was taken off. He then dictated midfield, neat and tidy, getting turned, treading little passes into Callum Robinson when it needed to be. I thought he was excellent. That was a key thing for me.